Yeah, well, you got your sights on a small multifamily now. You can't stop now.
Yeah. So now that number one is officially under the belt, comes all of the fun stuff that comes with it, like working with the um utility companies who are like, oh well, you need 700 million pieces of documentation, and oh by the way, you have to register, and oh by the way, in order to register, you need to do these, 500 million things. It's always fun. It's always fun.
Well, must be different in Detroit. I just did that for the last one we closed on in St. Louis, and they are all so helpful there. Even when I tell them I'm from California, they still want to help me. Such sweet people. So there's three utilities that I had to put in my name in the interim, and they were all super helpful.
Actually,
I
that might
thought
be
it's
something to
funny.
ask. Oh, go ahead, Jack.
I was gonna say, I thought it's funny whenever I try to transfer things on my all the utilities on my recent properties and stuff that they're asking me for the deed, to make sure that it was really me. I was just like, do you think I'd be paying for someone else's utility bills just for the fun of it?
You
There
never
are
know.
weird people. You never
Maybe
like,
you're just
hey,
a nice, wealthy guy.
hey guys,
Yeah. Don't
I'm just
The only ones that asked for the deed were for me were the property managers. So, but that's a little bit of other paperwork to fill out to be onboarded, I guess, as they say. So we'll see. But like I was saying, it's great to see you all this week. I hope you're all having a great week. If there's anybody that has any questions, feel free to let's get into them right away. I was thinking recently that we were on with Zuber the other day, and he was asking, what do we think keeps people from asking questions or getting involved? And one of the thoughts that I had was sometimes for example, if you pop in here and you're new, that you might be expected to come back every week or come on camera or ask questions, but that's not what it's about. It's just, we're all here. I know I learn a lot from you guys every week, which I really appreciate. And this is, I guess I really started doing this just to help you guys. So if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask. No, there's no stupid questions. Nobody in here is ever going to belittle you, anything like that. And so we just wanted to get that out there and make sure that you guys all know that I appreciate you being here, and everybody else here. There's a few people that are here all the time. I know sometimes we go long, sometimes we just talk about stuff, but whatever we can do to help you, that's what we're aiming for. Is there anybody that this is their first time here?
Yeah, my name is Alex. My real name is Alejandro. I go for
Hi.
Alex. Based off of Chicago, and then also invest in my local market. So first time with you guys. I just joined today. Actually, I actually joined, and I've been following Zuber for a really long time, but I never really. This is the first time I actually joined the class, and I said, "Ah, this is it. I'm doing it." So, but
is that that's kind of like long time listener, first time caller.
long time listener and first time actually following through with the membership, the school membership
Okay, cool.
for
Okay.
sure. So I'm excited. I'm really, really excited. So, I've
Yeah.
heard great things about the school membership, and, nothing but like I went on Reddit and I did, did all my research, and they were like, "This is a great community." So, and really happy to be here.
Yeah, we're really glad that you are here. And thanks for introducing yourself. We like I said, we're fairly informal, but I would like to, if any of you have questions right away, we want to make sure that we get to those, because like I said, sometimes we just drift. It's very informal, but we want to make sure that it's valuable to you guys too. For me, it's fine if you guys just want to come in and talk each week. That's cool with me. But we've been meeting a few new people. Hi, Gene. It's good to see you. That are really just starting out from the learning the basics. And most of you know me. My wife and I just got restarted investing in 2021. We tried in 2007, bought a couple, lost those, went through bankruptcy. Took us a while, and at the time there was no groups like this that I could find. There were a few books, but I didn't really have a community like this. So when we found Bigger Pockets, and through Bigger Pockets we found Zuber. We took a few mentorships. We've taken Casey's course from Brick by Brick Wealth, and we're in Dion's course. We took the Lumberjacks course. We took Ashley Hamilton's course. She's in Detroit, the Detroit investor. And, we're starting to build a small portfolio again. So I was telling Zuber the other day that this meeting or this get together, I hope you understand that you're not just coming here to learn from me, who's only been doing it for 3 or so years now, but all these other people that are in here have a lot of different experiences. And I've been hearing some stories. I thought we were going through a little bit of a hard time right now with a few vacancies and an eviction and repairs out of the blue, but just reading recently some other people's bios, and it can always be worse. So whatever you guys are going through, I think I feel better sharing our stuff, and talk with Dion sometimes, and just need a little bit of reassurance. So if you guys have anything going on like that, we're here. Alejandro, you said you're in Chicago, and do you have properties already?
Correct. No, yeah, I do have a couple of properties. I started investing when I was 22. I started off with a fourplex house, hacked that, and then I recruited my best friends to invest with me. So we got a 2-flat, and then I recruited my family members to get a single family with an in-law house. And then with the family itself, we progressed and got a fourplex. And from there on, we are currently looking, right now we did a cash out refinance on the fourplex. So we actually acquired that in 2019, where people were like, during COVID, they were scared to buy, they didn't know. And, fourplexes, here in Chicago, and then the restrictions of COVID itself, like, limit people to like be around. So it was a weird time. People were kind of scared. So I decided to pull the trigger on that fourplex, and I bought it for we bought it cash for 100,000. I just got it appraised about a month ago, and it came out to be 260,000. So I just currently did a cash out refinance, and that was the biggest home run I've ever gotten. And I'm really, really happy to share that, because I've never made that type of capital in my life, and especially with doing it with my family, and that meant really, really a lot to me. So now I'm just trying to deploy this capital very smartly. And I just feel like it's time to get into a group and actually, and hear more and soak in more knowledge.
Yeah, that's great. So all of your stuff's in Chicago?
All of it in Chicago, mostly in the south side of Chicago. My markets are West Pullman area. If anybody's in the Chicago market, It's West Pullman area, Pullman, South Deering, and Austin area.
All right, awesome. Yeah, Jason is in Chicago as well. And he just picked up his first fourplex 2 or 3 months ago now.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure which area, but that's another thing, you know, I think that's a benefit for all of us is making connections in the states that you're in. We're in California, we're investing in, right now it's mostly St. Louis, but we're in Wisconsin and Indiana, things like that, Illinois. So
I was also thinking about doing out of state. What do you guys, I mean, for you, I mean, you've been investing out of state for a while, and the closest places for me in the Midwest, I was thinking about going next door to Indiana. But what are the benefits that you guys have? More like question, what do you guys inquire for out of states? Because I self-manage, and it's always been hard for me to let someone manage my properties because there's a specific way that I want it to be managed. So I'm very hands-on. So I've always kind of had a hard time letting go of that. So initially my question is like, how have you all been able to do that efficiently?
yeah, I think last week that was one of the topics we discussed was self-management versus using property managers. And I couldn't imagine trying to manage our rentals out of state myself yet. But managing property managers is a challenge in itself sometimes. And we ended up finding a couple really good, what I think are really good property managers. They have good teams. Their prices are not really outrageous. We did fire one property manager for that reason. Bad communication, really high prices, things like that. But for us, when I was looking around, I relied on Bigger Pockets at the time. We're in another group that I mentioned before. It's called Addicted to ROI. And the agent that we came across in St. Louis was on both of those platforms. So that gave me a little bit of comfort. And I reached out to her, and she's been awesome to work with. We got a referral from the first property manager that we really liked is in St. Joseph, Missouri, and his mentor, the guy he came up under, is in St. Louis. So he's been managing our properties in St. Louis. They all have different platforms for owner portals. A few of them are on Appfolio. One of them is on Buildium. The one in Illinois kind of has her own. Her name's Jennifer Jackson. And I think so far, what I've been doing each month, obviously, is checking to make sure the rents are coming in on time. If they don't for any reason, then I'll reach out right away to the property managers. Sometimes we'll get a weird notice in the mail, like on our Milwaukee duplex, I got a notice from the city because the tenant didn't bring in their garbage can on time. I guess you have to pick them up right away once the garbage trucks go through. So we got that, and little things like that. I just take a picture of it, email it to the property manager, let them know what's up, and they'll usually take care of it right away. That's no big deal. But if the tenant does it again and there's a fine or something, I would be the one to get the fine, and then I would have to go through the PM to resolve that issue. One of the tenants in, you mentioned Indiana, Alejandro, and that we went to Indiana kind of following Millennial Mike. So we bought a turnkey there, and that one's going pretty well. But again, we got a water shutoff notice that they were behind on their water bill. And it's just a few minutes, to get that to the PM, and they follow up with the tenant and get it all worked out so far anyway. But I think the biggest thing is communication. And like you said, for me, I'm a contractor here in California. So when we have them do work for us, it's nice for me because I can explain to them how I would like them to handle repairs, what types of materials I want to use. On this most recent one, I'm just sending them links to the products that I use here, and they're fine with using them. And that property manager in St. Louis, they add 12% on top of the work order prices. So they'll get estimates, say for electrical or plumbing, and then they add 12% on top of that to manage the work, I guess. So that we started, and like I said, we're in a bunch of different markets, but in the beginning, being in California, we started following the turnkey model because that seemed like, the homes are rehabbed, then they sell them to investors after they're rehabbed. So you should have fewer issues. But and that's why we ended up in a few different states, because we were following those kinds of deals. And then now we've landed in St. Louis. Like I said, we really like the people there and the team that we're starting to build there.
Got it. No, St. Louis, I hear great things
What
about
did the
St. Louis.
turnkeys? Were they like hiding a lot of defects?
Well, on the turnkeys, the way it started out, and again, this was back in 2019 when we started with those, and a lot of times, like Alex was saying, you want, like when I do a job here, there's a certain level that we are held accountable to, and that I like to do for our customers. And the renovations that the turnkey providers were doing weren't really up to par as far as I was concerned. So we passed on a lot of deals. One challenge we had one year was we were right in the middle of winter, so it took forever to get the job done. And then when it was done, I wasn't happy with the work, so we didn't go for that one. So a few weeks ago, and Chester ended up buying a turnkey also through Allie Boone. She's a turnkey promoter that we know, and she was the first one that I reached out to. And what she does is goes to different states and vets turnkey providers. She had a few that she worked with over the years that she really liked, and she would report back to her group of us who were interested in buying those properties. And so for example, if the roof has 5 to 7 years of life yet left, they won't replace it. Same thing with water heaters and furnaces. If there's a decent amount of time left on those, they won't replace them. And but usually they'll like remodel kitchens, new cabinets, new plumbing, new flooring and paint and those kinds of things. So when you purchase one, you're able to get your own inspections, which we always do, get a sewer scope always. And then we'll go back and forth. If there's things on the report that come back that we're not happy with, we'll go back to the turnkey provider, and typically they'll take care of most of the issues. I haven't really seen anyone that didn't take care of the whole list. And
How do you do with going through your list of checks? How does it work out over the next 3 to 5 years?
most of
In
our,
terms of repairs.
yeah, so we have the turnkey in Indiana. We just passed a year on that one. And the one in Illinois, we've had for a year. The one in St. Joseph was the first one we bought. That was a triplex. And if you guys, I don't know if you all have seen my channel, but the old guy REI channel, I started recording our journey from the start. And I talk about all the properties that we've purchased in the beginning and the issues we had with them. The triplex is one that I didn't do enough due diligence on. It was a big Victorian house that got divided into 3 2-bedroom, 1-bath units. And so the flow isn't great. There were, you know, a lot of you guys have heard, but there was like one furnace for the whole building, and the one furnace was controlled by unit A. So units B and C didn't, you know, they struggled with that a lot. We just recently renovated the place, put in mini splits in those units and new flooring and paint and everything. That was like a $30,000 rehab, and we just got new tenants in there. That was all on me. I haven't seen any of our properties in person, by the way. So that's another thing that you might find strange, but everything else has been fine. You know, we get our inspections, we're sure there's a property on the lot, things like that. So, but again, going back to the channel, that's why I started the channel, was to, you know, show our mistakes, show the lessons we're learning, showing how we're getting through them, and I think staying positive to try to keep moving forward, because the other properties that we've purchased are working just like we think they should, right? You pick it up, you place a tenant, and maybe do a few things to improve the property. If it's pretty turnkey, then you get your tenant in there. We have 2 Section 8 tenants currently. The rest are regular tenants. And those are the Section 8 properties are the best performing to date. So we've had pretty good luck with that.
I had a question in regards to the section 8. So there's one that I was looking at. The fair market rent is about 300, 400-ish dollars more than what all the other places pretty much think the rent we would rent for. So I kind of want to get feedback on, if you had to pick which one that you think is probably more legit, would it probably be the fair market rent one, or do you think relying on like the sum value of like Rentometer, Zillow, Realtor, all of that would probably be the smarter way to do it?
I could say that when we're looking to find a number 4 rents to do your analyzations on, we go through everything. Fair market rents. So in our experience, fair market rents in some of the markets we're not able to get, because Section 8 or the housing authority in the places that we're in do comps as well. So if, just say, for example, in St. Louis, the FMR for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath unit for 2024 was $1,209. We had a Section 8 tenant in at $1,150. That's what Section 8 would pay. And then on the Illinois side, the FMR is the same, but the rents that they're getting there are about $900. So the way I've been trying to get accurate rent comps is actually contacting a property manager in the area, because they have their finger on the pulse of the area, and they can give you a really accurate number on what they're seeing, you know, in the current markets. So that's where I was going in the beginning. Check with property managers, check with the agents. Our agent in St. Louis has sent us comps for rentals in the area. And we had to do that recently because our property manager, when we were checking rents for the new units that we just bought, sent us a number that I thought was way too low. And the agent that's helping us buy there sent comps for a few Section 8 tenants in the same area, and the numbers were a lot higher than our property manager stated. So I'm sharing all that information with him in the hopes that, you know, like our agent said, you know, we need to fight for those rents because other landlords in the areas are getting them. So that's how we started. Because I know Rentometer and the Bigger Pockets rent calculator, they really vary a lot. But if you have the property manager or the agent that's right there in the neighborhood and they can see what's really going on, that I would listen to them right off the bat. I don't know if anybody else has any input for that question.
I mean, I guess I would just add, some of you, I think I mentioned this last time, but I'm not a huge fan of Rentometer. But there's a caveat to that because the area where my property is, there's old buildings and there's new builds. So the prices are really skewed because of the new builds. And likewise, because of the old builds, the prices are also skewed sometimes on the old builds. They kind of keep changing. So I would just, my 2 cents would be, if you're familiar with your area and your area is pretty consistent across the board, then Rentometer and some of those apps might be more reliable. But if your area is maybe one of those like maybe up and coming locations where they're starting to put up luxury units here and there, that significantly skewed my rent comps when I was looking. So I had to rely on manually looking at every sale property in the general area that fit the age of my home and the layout of my home. So
Yeah, that's a good point too. We looked around on like Zillow, just going on there and looking at what's for rent, the same size, same bedroom count, same bathroom count, things like that. And there was quite a range. It ranged from like 750 all the way up to 1250. So depending on the finishes too, and the specific zip codes, because a few weeks ago we were talking about since the FMR for 2025 came out, we all jumped in there and checked what it would be for us for next year. And one of my zip codes went down $100, but luckily all the rest went up a little bit. So that was the surprise for me. And that's one of the units that our tenant's moving out after September. So I'm going to try to get it filled because the new prices don't take effect until the first of the year. So if we get a tenant in there Section 8 now, we should still get 2024 pricing. And when I called them too, I called the housing authority and she gave me some really high numbers for rent in our zip codes, in our address specifically. So you can call them too. Again, I was surprised that I got a real person on the phone for one, and that she was super helpful. So you just give it a try. You might have great luck.
yeah, so I don't know if Rentometer has gotten any better, but it also didn't used to take into account things like parking, for example. Like these things that kind of make a big difference. Like in my area, I've seen, I got a little worried because I was looking at Zillow and some properties, same 2-bedroom, 1-bath that I have. They were going for maybe a couple $100 lower than what I had it. So I had to kind of dig in a little bit deeper. And obviously, some of them maybe they weren't remodeled as nice as mine, or they were very small. Right, so the square footage was small or smaller than mine. And also I noticed they wouldn't have parking, right? So in my part of Jersey, parking is really, really, really difficult. So having a parking spot kind of really attracts tenants and kind of commands a premium. So, again, I don't know if Rentometer takes that into account these days, but that's something also that keep an eye on.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they do take that into account. But one of the things that you made me think of that was a challenge for us, again, going back to that triplex, was it's a very clean building, but it's an old building, right? I think it was built in 1904. But if you see pictures of it, it looks quite nice. But when a person has the choice of renting there in a nice old building versus like a newer home, a couple blocks away or whatever, so that was one of the reasons that we updated flooring and we updated cabinetry and tried to bring up some of the finishes to compete with the other rentals in the area. And I mean, like I said, I think I said last week, it took almost 2 months to fill those units, even though they were brand new rehabs. But they are filled, and um, hopefully the tenants, hopefully the heating issue is solved now, right? That was the big one that kept turning people away. But now that they have heating and air and a newer space, hopefully that is going to help us.
Yeah, what I had to do too, Frank, is there's a lot of, like I mentioned, it's kind of an up and coming neighborhood, I guess you could say, for the last several years. So, you know, there's new multi-house apartment buildings and just regular like duplex and triplexes. A lot of them came up in the area. So, you know, mine is from 1980s, and these properties were from like, you know, 2010 or something like that. So I kind of had to at minimum bring the inside to the similar quality from those. You know, I can't do anything about the outside. You know, I stuck there, but at least the inside I was able to kind of match it up. And the other thing too, and we kind of spoke about this last week, and the way I kind of approach my rental prices too is I don't mind renting it a little bit lower than market. So if I see something that's comparable to mine at a particular price, I might put mine on the market for like $50 less. That's not gonna, you know, change things for me one way or another over the long term. Now, if anything, I'll raise the rents next time around when it comes to do so. But I'd rather that than having it empty. You know, I lose a lot more money from having it empty. You know, 'cause the rents on my apartments are like maybe $2,300. So, you know, $50 over losing $2,000 on a month. And that a big deal.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that was part of the discussion last week too, is you know, like you just said, filling a unit at close to what you were looking to get versus having it vacant and having to cover half or more, maybe all the mortgage payment yourself. That could cost you a lot more. And like Matt talks about, you know, the newer stuff that's coming up around his units that really drive his rents up even more, because they're asking crazy amounts of money for the new units the same size as his, and his buildings are all old, but you know, all his stuff is freshly remodeled and nicely appointed. One of the other things that we've talked about before too is because going through Matt's course, and you know, the areas that we're investing in are strong C areas, but Matt talks about, you know, little things like updating light fixtures, updating the outlets to a modern outlet, maybe an outlet that has USB charging ports in it, you know, things that people don't really expect. I think when I think of our places in St. Louis, if the tenant walked in there and saw outlets with USB charging ports, it might, you know, they might flip out, being happy about those little updates. You know, a lot of the places we've taken over haven't been cared for that well. So, you know, in one of them, we're doing a few new kitchen cabinets and new stainless sink and a new nicer kitchen faucet, things like that. And I think I'm hoping that will help the tenant, that they'll appreciate it enough to take better care of it, you know, knowing that we care about what they're getting. So all those little things could make a difference. I'm surprised, you know, we looked at a property a while back, probably 4 or 5 months back, and they were in the process of placing a new tenant, a Section 8 tenant, but they were selling the house. So our agent, they'll go through and they videotape, you know, the neighborhood, the house inside and out, so we can get a good idea what it looks like. And they said, you know, this unit's coming with a new tenant, new leases starting, I think it was in May. And when we looked at the video, I couldn't believe what bad shape the unit was in. And the tenant was moving in. Her stuff was, you know, some stuff in bedrooms and living rooms. I'm like, how could they rent this place like that? You know, the the vanity was loose on the wall, windows didn't work, just a bunch of little stuff like that, and I was really amazed. I would never want to rent a place to anyone like that, you know. And you know, I've said before, I would like our places to be kept nice enough. If I had to go live there, you know, that I would be fine living there. So no less for the tenants, for sure.
They actually might be moving into one of my properties later this year. So I'm in South Florida, so I'm in Central Florida. Tenant, that's kind of always late. They eventually pay, but it's always a week or 2 weeks late. And their lease is up at the end of November. And my lease here in South Florida is up in December, so lines up pretty well. I'm thinking I'm gonna ask them to leave, and I might move in for maybe a month, at least a month, maybe 2, and kind of get the place fixed up. I need a new cabinet. Maybe depending on what the cost of the bathrooms are, I might redo the bathrooms and fix the landscape, and you know, kind of exploring doing like midterm rentals on it, because it's like in Kissimmee, but close enough to the Orlando parks that I might be able to either short-term rent it as an Airbnb, because it's a single-family house, or like I said, I prefer to do like a midterm, so I don't have to deal with the, you know, cleaning every couple days, whatever the case, right? And I still have to look into that. I'm not sure how that works. There's a company that I cleaned it for you. But yeah, I might end up doing that, and you're exactly right. It reminded me of that, Frank, because I, you know, I'm moving in, but I know that the property is in good enough condition that I'm not moving into a dump. I'm just gonna kind of maybe try to raise it from like a C+ property to a B minus.
Mhm.
So yeah, but
Yeah, I think it'd be cool, especially if you could be there. Would you be there to supervise the improvements or do them yourself?
I'll probably do the easy stuff myself. I've renovated my property in Jersey myself. It was a lot of work, but it was fun. But all my tools are in Jersey, so I might have to borrow my brother's. He lives in Orlando. But yeah, I'll probably do you know, some of it myself. You know, maybe floors, or you know, fix walls that have holes in them. You know, spackle, that sort of thing. Switch I don't know. I mean, I've installed cabinets on properties before myself, so not opposed to doing it. It's just a lot of work, and I think if I can kind of pay somebody to do it in one day versus me in 3 weeks, it makes more sense. So
Yeah, I think the same thing. Yeah, short term is definitely sounds like quite a bit more work. Midterm sounds like a nice middle of the road thing. Better rents, and you'd still need to furnish it though, huh? Either way.
so that's kind of where the furniture that I have now, in my opinion, I'll bring that over there. Just if I do return, I'll leave it there. You know, it's the furniture that I would want for that type of housing, but it probably cost me more to put it in storage until, you know, until I found another property, or you know, I'm Ecuadorian, so I'm thinking of going to Ecuador as well. I was thinking of shipping it to Ecuador. Might cost me $10,000 to ship it to Ecuador. So you know, the numbers don't add up. You know, it kind of makes more sense.
They're already built.
They're already built.
They're acquiring 2 best-in-class storage facilities.
Let's see what else. Something to think about for later for you guys. We've been talking with a few of the other folks about what things look like when you reach your goal as far as, you know, your rentals and your life and things like that. So we might kick that around later. Just get your thoughts on that. I know when we've heard over the past few days or weeks about a lot of the big investors, you know, coming out talking about just getting a few rentals to get started with 4 or 5, like Zuber was saying. And it would be interesting to hear all of your thoughts. I think because for me, you know, being the old guy, I always talk about being old and being closer to the end of a real estate journey. And Dion had talked about house hacking, you know, house hack in the beginning to get started, and then you could house hack at the end to make it easier for retirement. So that's been a thought of ours as well. But I know, Sean, are you under contract or something?
I closed last week.
Oh, you closed. Great.
Yep.
On the one
I
we
have
did the inspection.
5 units. Yeah, that was the one we reviewed the inspection report for.
Oh, awesome. Congratulations. Yeah, I thought,
Thank you.
yeah, so you were under contract already for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Are you inheriting tenants on it, or do you have?
I did have inherited tenants on it.
It depends on your preference. That's either good or bad. I know Dion likes that. Some others don't. How did it go?
So, yeah, I have some inherited tenants questions that I was going to ask tonight to some of the self-managing landlords.
Yeah, throw them out there.
All right. So here's number one. I asked this on in Dion's live stream yesterday to get a feel for it. So I basically asked the same question, except I can provide a little more detail. I'd love anybody that self-manages, I'd love to get their take on this. So I inherited a tenant when I was over at the property doing the inspection. It was just me and the inspector, and they said, "Hey, well, we've got a dog, and it's but it'll be caged up." And we go in the unit, and I think it's a pit bull. And so the dog wasn't real happy that we were there, but it didn't seem like too vicious. But was looking at the lease. The lease that I inherited with the tenant says,
You know, most of the chairs, do they fit in a compact car?
the lease says that no animals are allowed. I do usually allow them in my other units, but I usually go for like smaller dogs and stuff like that. So I'm a little worried with this one that you know, I mean, quite frankly, I don't want a large dog to bite somebody and say, "Hey, let's sue the owner." So
how long have they been in the unit, if you don't mind me asking?
They've
Since
been
COVID?
in the unit. Well, they've been in since October of 22.
Okay, so semi-COVID. The only reason I ask is like I noticed that almost a lot of the buildings we acquired with tenants that had tenants during COVID basically dropped. You know, there were all no pets. They all said, "Yeah, if you guys want to get pets, it's COVID. We won't. Rather than have you leave or get unhappy, we'll let you do pets, and we never updated the lease, and we never charge you."
Mm-hmm.
And in general, that worked out okay. I mean, I'm listing out of revenue and a little more wear on the units, but it's fine. But I had one unit where in the last 6 months, I've had the dogs, a pit bull variant, attack a building I acquired back in December.
Mm-hmm.
In the last 6 months, the dog has attacked a fellow tenant's dog and a fellow tenant. And I said, "Guys, the dog's got to go." And so they're, now it's the girlfriend's dog and she's on the lease, but she's like, "Yeah, I'm leaving in October." I'm like, "All right, yeah, that's fine." But just be careful, especially because there's really 3 questions. One, are the dogs allowable? Are they permitted by the lease? And once they're in and they're already there, it's going to be hard for you to reclaim that rent, I would hypothesize. But two is, and if you push too hard, they could go after the emotional support animal, and then you can't get any rent. So two is you got to evaluate the repair, the wear on the unit. What I found is, like you, I've kind of come to the conclusion that the answer is small dogs or no dog, right? Because the wear on the unit with like large dogs like pit bulls, like I've got 2 broken windows, I've got trashed cabinets and trash carpets because of the pit bull variants that are in 1 or 2 of my units.
Right.
And then the third thing you have to evaluate is the risk of a dog assaulting somebody or a fellow pet or something like that. So things to think about.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
I understand.
absolutely. That's my big concern is, I don't want someone to say, hey, let's sue the owner because, the dog bit somebody. But I did talk to it's a duplex, right? So I talked to the guy next door and he said, yeah, the dog's not a problem. He's got a dog too, but he said it's not a problem for me. But I don't know. I'm just kind of a little bit worried about the large
Not to
dog.
prompt a problem, but you
Mhm.
should check with your insurance company, because like what I'm seeing with a lot of the landlord building insurance policies is if you say, hey, my tenant's got a pit bull or pit bull variant, they're like, no. So
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be the main issue. Just confirming with the insurance company if there is any risk for you to end up losing the policy. I had the same situation with previous applicants where, I find out through my property manager that they have a pit bull, and I have had the same question and I had kind of like the same concerns that you do have. And it is my understanding, at least in Florida, that you're not required to accept them, even if it is an emotional dog. I don't know if there will be some restrictions on
Yeah,
what.
in Georgia, I haven't heard of any problems with that.
Yeah,
So
emotional support dogs. Yeah, but again, it's just one of those things that, if I were you, I will try to find out, what you can do with that in that situation, because I don't think you're gonna be responsible if something were to happen. Like if the dog bites somebody, like the owner is, the pet owner, it will be the like, the responsible party, not you. You're just providing the house, for them to live in the house, not you're not responsible for their dog,
but if they
essentially.
have no renter's insurance and no liability insurance,
Yeah.
you could get pulled into that, right?
Yeah, so I
The
think that
only
what
thing
you should do, yeah, what you should probably do is just make sure that they have what they are supposed to have as far as like the tenant requirements, being
yeah,
renters insurance,
Yeah.
one of them, right? Like you mentioned, Chris. Yeah.
that might be where I have to go. I kind of don't want to go there. The lease says that actually that there's no pets allowed, and it's a $500 fine per violation, right?
No, if you don't want to
So
be, yeah, if you don't want to be dealing with that issue, you can try
Mhm.
to enforce then what is on the lease, right? Because at the end of the day, that
Mhm.
is a contract, right? So if it says no more than 25 pounds, they're breaking the
Right.
contract, right?
It
Point.
says no.
No pets.
And and here's the thing: the lease is up in October, so I've got an opportunity coming up to kind of say, okay, this is how I want to do it going forward. I kind of don't want to mess with them if they're happy with it, but at the same time, I don't want any liability either. So
I
if
had
I
the
could
same
offer,
exact thing with the lease because my lease was just up. Their original lease, because I inherited them, they were allowed no dogs, and they had a pit bull, a pit bull in the one. And I told them, you're not allowed to have this, which you already know, and which they acknowledge. Yeah, but the previous landlords didn't mind. I said, that's fine. Not saying you have to get rid of the dog. You have to have renter's insurance. I need proof of it every other month, and I'm signed on to it. So I know if they cancel it, I get notified. And I did tell them there's going to be a $50 fee for the pet every month. So, or that's it. You got to get rid of the dog. You got to go. And they had no problem with it whatsoever.
Yeah. If I could offer 3 thoughts. One,
please.
You do need to understand your insurance exposure, because a lot of policies will cancel if you have those dogs in there.
Yeah.
2 is if they do play the ESA card, because I had a couple of tenants who played that card recently, and I did I spent some time diligencing it, but do your own work. But you can't say no unless it causes the owner a financial unreasonable hardship. If your insurance company says no, they can't have that breed, you actually can reject an ESA, but you got to document the hell out of everything. And then 3 is you should charge a premium when the lease comes up. You say, look, I know you got the dog. It's not in the lease. I get it. I'm not going to make you get rid of it. If it's not causing any major issues, if there's no complaints, say, hey guys, but I got to compensate for that wear and tear. It's gonna be an extra 30 or 50 bucks a month. But if there are issues with the dog, or if they say they won't pay that, I would just get rid of them and move on to another tenant, right? It just the risks profile from my perspective, and I'm a little conservative, it's just too high.
Yeah.
My humble perspective.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Chris, too. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I don't think you want to be dealing with that long term. So it might be better try to, get
That's
into an
your
agreement
out
with the
too, is
tenant,
that
and if it doesn't work out, then they have to leave, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I would offer you this horror story. Like, imagine one day you get a call. I have a tenant that I'm exiting from the property because he lost his job and he got cancer, and it's not a great story. And I'm being very generous with them, but so he calls me one day and he says, "Hey, my neighbor's dog like bit my dog, like an $800 vet bill." And now they paid and they were super supportive, but I'm like, oh, like crap. And I call the tenants and like, what are you guys doing? Like, what's going on? Oh, well, the dog, they got an argument. I'm like, okay, fine. I get a call 2 weeks later. 2 weeks, the dog attacked this other tenant. He had to go to the hospital, and I'm like, oh my god, and I'm like, look, at the end of the day, what I'm most concerned about is your welfare. Do you want to press charges? Do you want me to evict them? And I would spare you that stress factor, because these are big dogs. They cause a lot of damage to properties, just normal wear and tear, and they can be unpredictable. So just something think about the worst case and then kind of work backwards from there. So
that's exactly where my head was. Yeah, thanks for that.
Here's an example real quick, guys, if you want to know something to take serious, is that I just was made aware from a family friend that his granddaughter just got bit by a dog that was just wandering down the road. She's got puncture wounds in her neck. She was in ICU for 3 days. So this is another possibility to take in consideration. What if there's children on those properties and that dog attacks a child? The scenario is greatly different.
Troy, I'm laughing as you say that because I grew up in the lumberjack landlord school of thought, which was never have any children in units. But
Hey, do you guys know if the emotional support dog? I mean, is there a specific breed?
no, it's a federal law that basically linked. I can try and dig up my research, but it's a federal law that you can't say no, you can't charge them for it, you can't charge them any way for it. But if you do a little bit of diligence, what you'll find is there are provisions where if it causes a financial hardship, and the only financial hardship is that if your insurance company says, hey, we want to ensure that you lose your policy if you have a dog in your property, that's the only out that I figured out. And and I show you with tenants, and I'm like, if you if you want to pull the ESA card now, I press hard, like, is the ESA real? Is it from a real doctor or just some online internet thing?
Yeah.
And I've only had one tenant out of 35 who pulled that card, and she was legitimate and it was fine. I was like, yeah, okay, fine, $50 a month. And by the way, she was an awesome tenant. I mean, she was like really like a rock star, and I no complaints, right? But after this experience in this other unit with like the pit bulls, I'm just super sensitive on the whole dog thing now.
Is there specific breed in the ESA mentioned?
No, ESA only says financial. ESA says nothing about breeds. If you search the precedents for how it's been challenged, you'll find that, hey, if ESA you can refuse an ESA animal if it causes a financial hardship, meaning which includes if your insurance company, so it becomes an insurance company policy decision, like, oh, my insurance company says they will not accept these breeds or they will cancel my policy. That causes me a financial hardship. Therefore, you cannot have that dog here. That's the sequence of events. The federal law doesn't dictate breeds. It's the linkage to financial hardship to your insurance company that you have to pull that thread.
So how about the insurance policy? Will the rate will be up?
Well, or they'll cancel it, right? I actually would say if you have a pit bull, I'd be willing to bet they'll cancel. But you got to talk to your insurance company on that. Say, hey, I'm a land. You know, if you have a landlord policy, you know, do you guys have any regulations on you know, dog breeds that you will or will not accept, and you know, go from there. I have USAA on most of my 4-unit and unders. My five and above are more commercial. And you know, I don't have it. I'll see if I can find it. I'll shoot it out to this group, but they I think they had a list of like 5 or 6 breeds that they said were, you know, not acceptable under their premium policy.
Every state's different, so make sure you check, because in Illinois, the insurance companies cannot ban breeds anymore. They used to,
Oh,
but they
interesting.
can't.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm.
That's
I'm sure
great.
every
That's
state's
great feedback.
different.
Yeah.
Even though ESA.
Again, ESA. Remember, ESA is a federal, and
Mm-hmm.
then there are state laws, as I think Jason was just saying. I think it was Jason. And then your insurance company has their own rules. So you've got to navigate those 3 and figure out like what's the path.
Yeah, it sounds like definitely the way to go. And I wasn't aware that ESA was a federal law. I thought it was a state thing. But
No, federal.
but yeah, thanks for that. That gives me an opportunity to do some research. And yeah, it sounds like the way to go is exactly what you were talking about. Find out what's allowed on insurance, and if it's not allowed on insurance, just tell them, hey, it's a financial hardship.
Why do people like pit bull anyway?
So I have 2 daughters who are going through vet school. So they became very popular. You know, they became very popular because of their strength and their you know, they're actually not awful dogs. The largest rescue in the country is called Best Friends, which by the way is a fantastic org. If you ever get a chance to support them, their mission is to eliminate all kill shelters in the U.S. by 2028, and they're 60% of the way there. They became very popular as, you know, in the social media scene, and that led to a lot of proliferation. And if you look at, so Best Friends has 37 rescues across the country. Their headquarters, which is 3,800 acres. And at any given moment, they have across all their sites, they have 1,200 pit bull or pit bull variants on. And you know, they've got horror stories like, yeah, there were a couple like major NFL players who had a couple dogs, and they got into dog fighting, and it's just a terrible tragedy story. I can't explain it being rational, but it became very popular, and then now we're dealing with the after effects of overpopulation and breeding, and they're also fighting animals, and which became, you know, somewhat popular for a while there. So
Okay.
It's actually a great breed if they're trained right, but nobody trains them right. That's the problem.
Right.
They're super loyal.
Yeah.
They're good dogs, but
They're
you have to
smart.
put the work in, and nobody does.
Yeah, they're really, you know, they're attractive. I mean, it's just, yeah, great breed, but just, and it's a shame. Like, and unfortunately, that's led the insurance companies to expand that ban to pit bulls, went to Dobermans, which I'm actually okay with. But that went to like German Shepherds, and I think there's 4 or 5 other breeds that, you know, normally you'd be like, hey, I have friends who have those dogs. The dog's great, right? So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So I would encourage every one of you, whoever, if you're going to accept pets in your units, to reach out to your insurance company and say, hey, do you have a breed restriction? Because I need to know that, especially now I mean, I've got tenants. Any tenant you have who's in the medical profession is going to be very savvy about ESA. I learned this, you know, with a couple nurses and pharmacy techs and physical therapists.
Okay.
And they know how to play that system really well. And the good news is they're really good tenants. So I'm kind of like, okay, I give up $50 a month, I get a really good tenant. That's a great trade, right? But they know the laws really well, and they're going to navigate that, and that's fine. That's fine. My mom's a nurse; it's fine. But you need to know your limits of exposure and liability to be able to say, hey, I get you're claiming the ESA, but you know your wildcat, bobcat, you know, pet is not going to be acceptable to my insurance company, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah, last one on that. We did the same thing. We had State Farm on the triplex, and applicant was getting a pit bull puppy. So I reached out to our insurance company, and they came back with a list of about 10 breeds that they wouldn't accept.
Wow.
pit bulls being on it. Yeah.
Wow.
But I
And one
think
of the
like,
other things to be careful about, I guess you could say, is whenever you're also looking for or shopping, I should say, for insurance, if you've got a policy that seems like it might be getting a little bit high, check with the new or any potential insurers as well about what breeds of animal they do and don't accept, because some will accept some types of animals, others don't. So, it's a little bit of a, balancing act, but if you can try to find a way to save a little bit of money here and there if you're switching carriers, that's one of the other things to be
Hey,
aware of.
yeah, on a related note, I don't know if you all remember, but was talking when I shared the inspection report about lesson learned. The insurance company that I was using, which was called Tower Hill, I've been using that on all my rentals. I have Allstate at my personal residence, and with Tower Hill, they were going to give me a discount for having a new roof that was put in 22. And they asked if they could see the inspection report, and I said sure. And then they came back and they said you have to fix everything in this inspection report, and by the way, we're not going to accept you. So I always check multiple companies, and I checked with Allstate, and they said yeah, we'll do it, and it was a good price. And I actually, it's a company that Allstate goes through. If anyone's interested, I'll get you the name. But I actually saved $300 on my umbrella by switching to a different company, like $1 million umbrella on top of the other insurance. I think I got the name.
Allstate referred him to you?
Yeah, they're RLI. RLI is the company. Yeah, what Allstate told me is they said we can write you an umbrella that covers your personal residence, cars, all that stuff, and your rentals, if we insure all of them. But since I have some of them with Tower Hill, which gave me a better price on the rentals, they said we go through this company called RLI, and yeah, they gave me like $1 million umbrella for $300 something.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't usually plug companies or products. I'm very limited, but if I could say one thing, there's an insurance company out there called USAA. It was originally targeted for military officers, then it became all military. You don't have to be a military. I don't, I'm not so fortunate as to be a vet. But if your mom, your dad, your grandparents are a vet, you are eligible as a family member.
Nice.
So my dad's an Army medic, and my father is a naval enlisted guy, and we got access. And oddly enough, I used to work in consulting, and now I'm in private equity. They were actually a client of mine for a while. And I would tell you, as a business person, they suck because they will live and die for their customers, even if it makes them bankrupt. However, as a customer, I switched them over from car insurance. They're awesome. Like, they will live and die for you, which is exactly what I want, right? And
that's exactly what you want as a customer.
Exactly. And they do. They will. They're everything that's a 4-unit and under. I have all my insurance with them. Are they the most competitive? I don't know. Are they pretty close? Yeah, probably. But if you're eligible, have any family in the military, I would highly encourage you at least price them out. It's a great company, really good service, the best mobile tech platform out there. Just food for thoughts. So
appreciate
quick question:
that.
If you have your brother, does that apply for siblings?
I think so, but
check
I haven't
the
tested
website.
that.
Check the
Yeah.
website. The same thing goes with USAA. being a former naval officer, like I had to, going through school, because I actually went through Naval Academy. We had to do all of the signups and everything. So did all of that early. Um, the requirements, it's not the right word, but basically who they will allow to apply and enroll and join has expanded significantly, especially since like the 2000s, 2005 timeframe when I had originally signed up. So it went from like immediate, like spouse, family members to children, grandchildren. I believe it may potentially have expanded further. So definitely check the website. There may not be as many products, even though I'm talking about Navy Federal, but for USAA specifically, do check the website and they will tell you what, things that you do or don't need based on your relationship to whomever served.
And Chester, thank you for your service. They're a great company. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass to kind of go through the qualification process, but in my view, it's totally worth it. And by the way, for personal auto insurance, they're actually pretty good too. So food for thought.
But I did want to add one thing to the pit bull because I was thinking about it, and I'm not sure if you'll find this information useful, but it may just be useful to know. But definitely double check it. I used to work at an animal shelter, and every single dog that came in, we marked as a mixed breed. And then this is word of mouth from people that would adopt out these. They said that their insurance company, as long as they had some sort of official documentation that did not say it was a pit bull, that that was fine. So even if it was like, you could look at it as like, yeah, that's a pit. If they either do or don't have documentation saying that may be something that's worthwhile if you want to keep the dog, if you want them to get rid of the dog. It's just something to know if they have any kind of documentation saying one way or another, that can affect whether insurance are covered or not.
Good point.
Thanks for that.
I deal with
One
this.
thing that I wanted to mention about the RLI company, I'm actually with them as well. And I have my umbrella policy with them, I think for about 3 years now. And I know at the beginning I was paying the same amount, kind of like what you're paying. I think it's Sean, right? The one that is with RLI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, so I actually called Geico, and I guess Geico uses this company for their umbrella offering.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you that now, and again, it could be because I have more rentals now, but now I went from 300 throughout the years. It has been going up. And now I think last time I paid the renewal was close to 1,000.
Wow.
Just to give you an idea. So just something to keep in mind that in the future, you will be paying more, especially if you have more properties that you are adding, because one of the things that you have to do upon renewal is that you have to report how many properties you have that are going to be under the umbrella. So
I would have guessed anytime you add a new property, you have to report it. Is that not?
Yeah, you should do that. But if you don't, then at the renewal time, they will make you fill out like a little questionnaire where you have to fill that out, and it asks you, like how many properties you have now, and I know that could be maybe one of the reasons why it went up for me every single time that I have been renewing with them. But I know also insurance overall in Florida have been going up, right? All kind of insurance. So I'm not surprised I'm paying more now, but I do know that I definitely have more rentals now than the first year when I got that policy. So I was just looking at that the other day because, it has definitely gone up substantially, went from $300 to 1,000 or 1,100, in a matter of 2-3 years.
Hey, if I could just add one comment, I think Mickey, I just posted something in the chat. Looks like it's from a insurance policy. Risks where any occupant has an animal, yada yada yada. A breed of the following 10 breeds: Akita, Pit Bull, yada yada yada. or any mix or variation of these breeds. So unfortunately, I think the insurance companies have gotten wise. Any mixed breed that has any pit bull in it is probably invalid. So anyway, like I said earlier, you gotta reach out for your insurance company, get the exact wording of their parameters on this. But because like I grew up, I started in a real estate community called it was a bunch of doctors and nurses who were doing real estate, and they were very big on pets as a big margin booster. But I think you got to really understand what your insurance company will tolerate when it gets to some of these special breeds. So
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment on that really quickly. This isn't anything like actually serious though. I just was making the comment that like I don't know who thought it was a good idea to be like, I think I will have a wolf mixed with some sort of hybrid and then have that animal be around human beings because that's an like I just thought of that like the fact that a insurance company has to clearly tell people no wolf, no wolves or wolf hybrids, like
yeah.
scares me that people think like this.
Hey, Chester, can I tell you a funny thing? This one example I highlighted where the pit bullish breed um, was caused the bit another dog and then bit another tenant. The owner, the female owner of that, works at a wolf rescue in southern Pennsylvania.
What?
Yeah, like okay, yeah, you're, and I'm like, yeah, guys, like I can't tolerate this anymore. She's like, well, I'm actually moving out in 30 days because I'm breaking up with my boyfriend. I'm like, that's great. You taking the dogs with you? Yep. Like, okay, great. Is your boyfriend keeping any dogs? No. That's great. He can stay. So yeah.
Yeah, that's just wild. Like, all right, you guys go live on the edge, and I will
I think
be.
I think I forget if it's a wolf hound or a wolf dog. It's one of those pet projects where it's a recent breed. They're trying to essentially breed a dog that looks just like a wolf with the temperament of a dog. So they're like selectively breeding for that. And so that might be where that came from. Because I found out about that and I was like, oh my God, I want to get one of these. But they're of course like it's not they're very expensive and very, not my lifestyle. But
Do
they
you
look
guys not
cool.
know how? Do you guys not know how crazy people are? Or you're not watching the Chimp Crazy on HBO with the lady that got her face ripped off by a chimpanzee?
What?
Oh yes, it's a series on HBO right now. It's made the
That's
same
scary.
people that made Tiger King. It's people are crazy. They do all kinds of stuff with animals that they should not do.
Yeah, they look like shit when they rip their face off too.
Yeah, it's not a good
Guys,
look.
It's
all right,
not a good
guys,
look.
guys, I'm gonna make this public service announcement. Darwinism is real, all right? I don't care what anybody says, all right? Survival of the fittest. Let's not do crazy things like,
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but yeah, let's not do things like, hey, that wild animal over there probably has
Yeah.
rabies or something. Let me see if I can
Yeah.
tame it and bring it around humans.
Yeah.
Ugh, man,
I
oh
learned
man.
about rabies. That's like one of my no. I don't even pretend to mess with rabies. If it's a stray, it's like, nope, I'm not going anywhere near that because rabies is quite possibly the worst virus you could get,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
I will say the two like major, pucker moments I had in my entire career of a real estate investor. One was last year when a tenant said, hey, like I was moving out and the railing on your stairwell gave out and I fell down, and he sent me pictures from the ER and he's like bruised and got some cuts.
Oh.
Now, and then later I timestamped the pictures, and the pictures were from a week before the ER visit. They were the pictures of the railing broken. And so what actually happened is he was moving out. He broke the railing on his own. He fixed it himself. And then later on it broke and he tumbled down the stairs. So that was a gift from God, that not my fault. Cause I'm like, hey,
Wow.
you never reported it. Cause I'm like, literally, I'm in Apple. I'm Googling Apple, like had a timestamp photos. And I'm like, wait a minute, like the picture of the railings a week ago and the picture of the R is an hour ago. And your uncle's like, oh, he got hurt. And then he said something about trying to fix it. I'm like, wait, what do you mean fix it? He's like, never mind. I'm like, so
Wow.
and he went away. And then the other one was when I got the call, like, oh, first it's like, oh, our neighbor's dog bit my dog, but like they were really good about it. They paid for the vet bills. I'm like, and then like literally like a week or two later, it's like, hey, the dog bit me. I'm in the ER, and you know, and I mean, those like literally, there's nothing else in real estate, and we've done multi-unit for the last 4 years, and then we've been doing like fix a house, renovate it, and then move out and rent it for the last 10, and nothing gave the pucker factor than that. So it's really hypersensitized me to some of these things.
And
Well,
I'm just say,
I can
just want-
interject a little bit here. So I take care of 50 dogs, over 50 dogs a day a lot of times. My day job is we operate a dog daycare and dog boarding facility. And so
That's awesome.
So we hear about all the I deal with all of these people on the other side of wanting to bring their dogs to us for their vacations and pet care and all that kind of stuff. And so but the advantage I have is sometimes they'll try to pull the service animal card on me when they want me to care for their dog. Well, I'm not providing them a home. I'm just voluntarily, if I'm going to board their dog for them. And so it's pretty rare. I've had a few times where people want to, say, well, it's a service animal. It's like, well, that has no reflection
nice.
on me. That's great. Good for you, basically. But yeah, so when we board, but when it comes to certain breeds, a lot of your bully breeds we don't care for. And oh man, some people get mad. They call me racist because I won't take their big mastiff or their pit bulls and that kind of stuff. So it's funny, you get these different dynamics on people with their dogs and that. But yeah, so I kind of see the people with the dogs and the whole pit bull thing. Unfortunately, you can see some that are nice, but the thing to remember is they're a pit bull terrier, and so we show dogs also, and we have terriers of our own that we show. Terriers are one of the things that people are attracted to about them is they have a lot of personality and spunk and all that kind of stuff. Well, they have a very strong prey drive, and so a Yorkie terrier has that same prey drive, and they can be an ankle biter and they come after you. The thing to remember is they're on a scale of a Yorkie that nips you in the ankle, and yeah, it might break your skin, but it's not going to take you down and get you by the throat. Where you have a pit bull that's now got the size and strength and still has that same prey drive when they see another dog or that jogger going by or the kid on the bicycle or just the neighbor kid or whatever it is. And they just have the ability to, do more damage, unfortunately. And so that's where, you get that kind of stuff. But it's that terrier instinct, and it's an instinct thing. And a lot of times it's hard. And I love dogs. That's our livelihood. And like I said, we show dogs, but again, I don't take pit bulls because I have to look out for the liability issue when it comes to our staff, making sure, everybody's safe and that kind of thing too. So it's a crazy area to navigate. And on the landlord side of it, I've used the insurance company as kind of for guidance, I guess. And when I've had a tenant that wanted to bring a dog in, I was a new tenant, and my property manager called me and they said, I asked them what kind of dog it was, and I just forwarded it straight on to the insurance company. And I said, here we have a prospective tenant. Here's the dog they have. And they said, unfortunately, that would fall under a dog that we would not insure. And I just sent that right back to the property manager, and that was enough information that it never went any further than that. So that seemed to work. But
Josh, you ever heard of a place called Canine Resorts? It's an emerging chain of dog boarding.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there. There's some big ones like Camp Bow Wow and all those kind of places. But yeah, we're just a mom and pop one off.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my input.
Cool.
Thank you. Alex, were you going to say something?
Yeah, going back to the question, as much as I love dogs, I have dogs of my own. Well, when I inherit in tenants, like even before I buy the property, I go, the agent tells me, hey, there's current tenants and they've been great tenants, and do you seem like you have a problem with that? And I always go in check the tenants out, introduce myself when they do the showing and all that stuff, and I see dogs. And if it's it's bigger than if it's like a pit bull or like, those type of dogs, I what I do is I'll wait for the closing and I'll do my best to empty out the building. I'll empty out the building and I'll get my tenants and I'll do the screening, because it's just I've had problems with like dogs, all these horror stories, and I've been through some horror stories with dogs. But before I do a closing on a house, I go and check it out, and I see dogs. I'll wait 2 more weeks or a month before closing in order to get a complete clean building. I know it's going to be hard in the beginning because you're not going to get no cash flow, you're not going to get no capital, and if you're leveraging the building, it's going to be hard. But I'd rather deal with that and then bring in my tenants. But that's just the way I do it,
Amen.
But yeah, that's kind of my input on that.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think there's a lot of different ways to handle it. I guess like Chris was saying, it depends on your tolerance level, how risky you want to get, but at least there's a few things we can fall back on, and using the insurance, like you said, is probably a good way to eliminate a lot of that mess.
Definitely what I'm thinking of pursuing.
Well, that's a tough topic to follow. Now what? You guys have
a
Hey,
specific one.
I have a straw poll question. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt someone there.
Go ahead.
I have a straw poll question. Like your comment's interesting. Like if I think about all of the tenants that I've had problems with, it's all been inherited. I've not been the guy who said, "Oh, I want you to empty the building before I buy it." But honestly, after the last like 6 months, I'm like, maybe I should think about that approach, right? Now that being said, like I've got 30% of my tenants I inherited, and they're great. Like they're really good. But every tenant I've had problems with was inherited, right? So I'd just be curious to get folks' sense on that. Just kind of curious, actually. Because I'm actually wondering, like, should I get? And I have economically realized that, yeah, you inherit the tenants, and you got to wait and figure out when you can get them to, exit or turn over, and then you're incrementally upgrading units, and you got one unit that's nice, one unit's crappy, and there's a part of me, and Zuber kind of commented on this the other week, like, yeah, maybe it is better, like, exit the tenants, just flip turn the building, get it done, then the whole building's nice, some tenants and crappy units and some tenants nice, and just get it over with. I'd just be curious to get other people's thoughts or experiences.
From my personal experience, I've always like when I deal with inherit tenants, it always goes wrong, and I say always, not always, but typically it always goes wrong, and I think because of what they're used to previously, and probably they're used to the old landlord or the other property management, and I feel like sometimes that's the miscommunication. For example, I went in my second deal, I inherited a couple of tenants, and then the previous landlord, he was very loosey-goosey, and I self-manage, and I like to provide great service. If you have something wrong with your unit, I'm there, or I'll get somebody out there. But if I see something that needs repair, I will say, hey, by the way, I'm going to schedule an appointment for you on this day. Are you available? No? Okay, no problem. Let me email you and send you a person's ID that's going to come out to your unit, and they're going to fix your X, Y, and Z. But sometimes they feel like it's overbearing, or sometimes it's just too much for them. But I've always had problems with like inheriting tenants just because of what I think that they were accustomed to. And then I come in and there's a different style of I manage the properties. So from my experiences, I've always, every time I purchase a new property with asking the seller completely vacant building, and I'll wait another month for you to vacate the building, and then for I could come in and then get my own tenants. That's just my input on that.
Yep, no, it's good stuff. Troy's had his hand up for a bit. What do you got, Troy?
Hey, so I was gonna say, any of you guys that are potentially thinking about doing a short-term rental or mid-term rentals for your properties, I'm starting up my own business as a co-host, so I'm pretty knowledgeable in the area of doing it. I currently operate a short-term rental and a mid-term rental as well. They are a lot more time intensive, hospitality wise. You are definitely having to respond a lot more. There's a lot more upfront costs in terms of furnishings, but I wouldn't say that, don't look at it. Easy way to analyze your existing market is just get on Furnish Finder. You can do it just like you would do an apartment or house, rental comps in your area. Just you can use Furnish Finder as a way for midterm rentals to look at comps and what rents are going for. Look at what this is primarily for you, Santiago, is look at the surrounding area of where the property is you're looking to analyze for purchase for using it as a midterm rental or a short-term rental. Is look at what their furnishings look like, look what common information that's being provided, see how you can market your property better than they do. There's a lot of ways you can get into it by utilizing a lot of online apps to market your property. It's just a lot more time intensive. So just take that into consideration for, what you're looking at for furnishings, for a midterm rental. Just kind of a rule to think of is it's generally for furnishing kind of a 1-bedroom, 1-bath property. You're looking at about $10,000, and then it's $2,000 to $3,000 additional per room. Just kind of have that in mind, because even you can go the shorter route of going or cheaper route by doing like online purchasing through what can I think of the name? The Wayfair. Wayfair is cheap, but you got to remember that furniture is cheap, so you don't want your furniture breaking down, falling apart on you, a couple stays in. If you're really hands-on, you can do really well by going to thrift shops and stuff like that. Use Facebook Marketplace to purchase, bed frames, so forth from there. There's big ticket items you want to make sure you have that really give your renters or your guests, as you would say in hospitality, a good experience. It's, features and stuff like having amenities there that are really key for them, because depending on if you're going to be marketing to people that are just, this is in particular for midterm, is it just, are you going to put it out there for people who are looking to stay, or are you going to progressively go after, like, it could be construction workers, it could be traveling nurses, it could be corporate travelers, it could be displaced families or individuals for insurance purposes. There's a lot of ways to market the property, but you definitely want to cater towards them to make it work. But like I was saying, in terms of short term, it's easy to analyze what you're thinking of doing just by looking at the comps, by getting on Airbnb, VRBO, Furnish Finder, and then you can look at like what you're getting yourself into before you automatically, I'll just short term it or I'll just midterm it, because it is a lot of work. And I'll tell you, you get phone calls any time of the day, any time of the night. You're on vacation. Hey, this broke, or hey, I can't get into this place, or hey, I can't do this. You have to be responsive. So thought I'd give you guys some of that information. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than glad to assist or help you guys with my experience in it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy.
First of all, am I audible? I'm using headset now because my audio was bad before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That's better. It's a lot
Thanks.
better.
Good. Thanks. My computer is like 8 years old, so those speakers aren't any good anymore. So, Troy, you actually brought up something that I hadn't heard before, right? You brought up construction workers. I never thought of construction workers as midterm rentals, but it makes a lot of sense. What I was thinking was basically traveling nurses. That's gonna be my market, but you kind of opened my eyes there to the other possibilities.
Yeah. In the midterm space right now, everybody's kind of keying in on traveling nurses. The traveling nurses aspect is kind of fallen away from what was a really rich environment. Now that's a lot of the hospitals are not having a high demand for that anymore. They're still out there, and the Kissimmee area I think could be a good market for it. But I think that Kissimmee area is a really good market for a lot of different things. So if there's any construction going on around there, you know, it's hitting up those construction companies. It's getting into those contractors' knowledge. So just, you know, getting out there and putting yourself in front of the people that are placing them, if that's what they're doing. It could be contacting insurance companies and saying, hey, I have a 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom, whatever it be. You know, if you have any insurance displaced clients, I have a property for this, you know, for this that can work for them. Save my information. Give me a call if you need anything. And they may even ask you questions as to, oh, what do you provide? Where's the location? You know, it could be that. There's a host of things, but the biggest thing right now is that not a lot of people are taking advantage of is construction workers. And if you're in an area where there's a lot of construction going on, that's a prime area to being able to hit them up, because usually they have a per diem when they get on contract. They may be there for 3 months, 6 months, you know, 9 months, a year on a project, depending on the scale and the scope of it. And so they get a lot of per diem, and the per diem is basically covering their lodging and food and gas for travel or for car rental. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll partner up with other guys in a group, you know, and they'll try to reduce their expenses so that way they have more play money or just money that they can pocket on the project. And so look at the extended stays that you have nearby. That could be another indication of, if you're in the area, drive by, see what type of vehicles are in those areas. And if you see a lot of pickup trucks, or, you know, it could be car rentals, but if you're there in the evening, you'll see, like, I would say usually like construction workers get off around like 3 and 4 o'clock. If you're in that area around, say, 4-ish, you know, 5-ish, and you see a bunch of guys crawling out of cars that look like they've been coming off a construction site, then you have a good idea that they're construction workers. And so that's a really rich environment right now.
If I could offer, oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, one quick question. I think I missed the part where you mentioned, Troy, about people that are displaced. Who would I approach to kind of provide like my services for that? Like who would I tell in the city that I have a property for people that are displaced? Would it be the insurance companies? Should I be reaching out to insurance companies and things like that?
Insurance companies and real estate companies.
And real estate companies. Okay.
So in that area, just call your major insurance providers that are local branches. Just contact and introduce yourself, who you are, and what you can offer for them in terms of lodging and the size and scale of the home.
When you say real estate companies, you mean like realtors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Call brokers. Call them up and say, hey, you know, I'm not sure if because this is another thing that a lot of people forget to think of. Say you go to close on a house, maybe they're in a contingent offer, maybe it gets delayed. Well, your house closes that you're selling, so then where are they going to stay?
Yep.
So I've actually I've hosted a older couple that was displaced because
their house closed and the house they're trying to get into got delayed for 3 months.
Okay. Yeah, good
So
stuff. Yeah, appreciate it.
Hey, Troy,
that
I can just offer two other data point. I'm sorry, Santiago, I think what Troy
Yep.
said is awesome. So first off, Matt, the lumberjack landlord, has some great content on this midterm rental. That's worth kind of tracking down. But we had a unit we inherited. We bought a duplex. My wife loved it. It was quote cute unquote, and we bought it. And I was like, okay, maybe the economics weren't what we thought they were, but we converted the 2-bedroom into an MTR. We were going to do traveling nurses back in 21, 20, 22-ish, 23-ish. And yeah, we great, like, so a unit that empty would rent for 13 to 1400. We were pitching 24 to 2500 a month, but it's only 3-month leases, and we got a ton of demand. And my wife had this great idea. She said, let's just put it on Zillow for grins, right? So we put it on Zillow, and we stumbled into this whole traveling exec community. And the traveling exec's like, look, I won't pay 26, but I'll pay 21 or 2000, and I'll do a 12-month lease. And I'm like, sold, right? And it was awesome. I mean, it's been awesome. Now, some of them are a little more, it's like, I forget who it was, like Matt or Zuber. They're like, yeah, sometimes the Class A type tenants, you get a little entitlement. Like, I think maybe it's Dion who says, the tenants with the 850 credit scores sometimes are the most difficult. But in general, it's been awesome for us. Really, really, really good. You have to furnish it, but for a 2-bedroom apartment, I think we spent, I don't know, $5-6 grand, right? And it's been really, really good for us to kind of upskill it. It's a little more work to sell it, and you got to maintain not just maintain the apartment, you're maintaining the furnishings. Like, the rug's kind of stained and it's kind of old, but food for thought. But what I also learned actually watching some of Matt's videos was and my family is almost entirely nurses, right? Is the traveling nurse thing is kind of collapsing a little bit, right? Like the average rate for like a standard surgical nurse went from like 85 to like 295 to like 420. And now, I'm quoting Matt here, right? But the state attorney generals are getting involved in like suing a lot of these, so what we've seen accordingly is that the traveling nurse market's kind of really moderated post-COVID, right? So I think it's still a market, but it's more competitive. But I'll be honest, like the traveling exec thing, like I look at it this way: it's not MTR, it's not traveling nurse. It's like if you furnish a place, you rent a furnished place, and there's a lot of options for a furnished place: STR, MTR, MTR nurses, MTR traveling execs, MTR construction. But for the MTRs who are not going to do 1-year leases like traveling execs, it is a lot more work. I think Troy was spot on. But if you're prepared for that, it can be really lucrative. But don't be shy about charging the right premium for that. So anyway, just food for thought.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the area where my property is, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but I would call it maybe like a C+ area. So I don't know about traveling execs. They might not. It might not appeal to them.
But you don't know, like a traveling exec could be like a mid-level manager accountant who, I guess all I'm saying is when you list stuff on, the Furnish Finder for whatever the higher premium, just for grins, right? Worst case, it costs you an extra $50 a month. List it on Zillow for traveling execs. I mean, what have you got to lose, right? Because there are a lot of like mid-level people who are traveling, and they have, as Troy said, they have a per diem. Could be government people, military people, what have you. It opens up your options, just food for thought. Because like we didn't expect it, and we found it, and in hindsight, it was way more convenient and less painful, and roughly as profitable as traveling as the 3-month, short-term midterm rentals, right? Which would be, more than 30, less than like 6 months. Because anyway, so just food for thought.
Yeah, great. Yeah, you know what? And that's something that I think about now too, because I rent right now where I live, and what they do is basically they charge more for the shorter the time frame is, right? So they'll charge, 3,500 for a 3-month lease, 3,000 for a 6-month lease, 2,500 for a 12-month lease, right? So that might be a strategy.
My daughter went to school in Baltimore, and we're looking at leases, and it's starting in August, and school starts in August. That's fine. And I'm like, well, like, sweetie, you're not going to be there for the summer or the following summer. So like, just get a 9-month lease. And basically, if you did the math, a 9-month lease was the same over the next 12 months as a 12-month as staying August to August, right? And I feel like we're not inclined, we as landlords don't always think about charging your, like what I have not yet done, but I know I need to do is like if a tenant says, hey, can I go month to month? For me to say, sure, it's a $300 a month premium for that. Because if you abandon me in December, I'm not going to rent until February. So, and I'm just slowly getting into that habit to do that. But it's a learning
I'm bad
curve.
at that. I'm bad at that. I mentioned it earlier on the call too that I kind of underprice my properties to begin with, just so they can get rented. But yeah, trying to charge a
I
premium.
think but it's smart though. It's smart that you're trying to understand the market. You know, because you don't want. Yeah, I think it's a smart thing to kind of you're taking your time to kind of learn the market, right?
Yeah, awesome. I think you know what I'm pretty much 90% inclined here to do midterm rentals, and since I'm gonna be more than likely moving into that property, I'll get a chance to fix it up and get a closer look, right? Because I've been to the property several times, but only in passing, just to kind of make sure everything looks okay. So I'm really gonna have a chance to kind of spend some time there, see what the environment is like, see who might be willing to stay in the area, and then yeah, put it up for rent as a midterm. Because yeah, that might be the answer. Because I've been trying to find like an extra $500 to $1,000 of cash flow, and maybe it won't be that much higher as a midterm rental, but it certainly would be more than a long-term rental. So I might be able to
It's
bridge
just
that gap.
it's the furnishing cost, right? Like we actually found a woman who I met her. I saw her through Bigger Pockets. Who she was a retired nurse. She had 67 properties, midterm rental, all tailored to traveling nurses across the country. I think we paid her $1,500 to basically like we sent her pictures of the unit. She picked up all the furniture, had it all delivered. We spent 2 weekends like assembling it, like like IKEA monkeys, like putting all the furniture together. That was a pain in the ass, but then it looked great, right? And then the only last thing, my only last like nugget is that if you're going to go mid or short term, find a professional photographer who is experienced in real estate. So my banker had a who also owns investment real estate, had a photographer who did weddings but did real estate on the side. Her photography was friggin' awesome. Like it really brought the units to life. She had different lenses. She photoshopped it, and it made a world of difference. And like I feel like that probably added almost as much of a competitive advantage to my units as spending the $5,000 new cabinets and the $1,000 on like new flooring and like lighting, and it made a huge difference, right? So anyway, just food for thought. And it cost me $150, and I can use that for the next 5 to 10 years, right? It's not like it's like a one, every tenant, right? It's awesome.
Good stuff. Thank you. Frank, I'm getting my $20 worth.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it.
It's worth a lot more than that. But.
Yeah. Did we tell you these meetings are going to be $50 starting next week? No.
$50 a meeting, Frank. $50 a meeting, not $50 a month. $50 a meeting.
Yeah, per meeting. So it's 200 a month. That's a nice round number. All right, where do we go from here? Sam, are you there? You had snakes last week. Maybe he's busy. Anybody else?
Got a question as far as Hemlane. Has anybody had experience with the complete one? As far as which version to go with? Has anybody used that one?
The top tier, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who has.
I tried Hemlane. I don't want to badmouth them, but I had difficulty. So I have some of my properties on LLCs, and I think that became a problem for some reason when I was trying to create the account and get the bank accounts verified. We never really found out what happened, but we just couldn't. We couldn't verify my bank accounts through it. I don't know if it was a unique situation, but I went with a different company. I went with Azibo, and that went really smooth for some reason, and gladly, obviously. But I would have preferred to go with Hemlane, to be honest with you. We just couldn't get past that.
How do you spell? Is it AZEBO?
AZIBO.
Okay.
Yeah.
We use Hemlane for 20 of our units. It's funny, Santiago, I hope I'm getting your name right. That we started to hear complaints in the last 6 months of new tenants having a hard time kind of getting the banking stuff. But I would say, honestly, other than that, it's been pretty seamless. But they are trying to kind of really change their platform to stay competitive. And, who knows, maybe there's a degradation going on. I mean, I guess time will tell, but
yeah,
but it's
I really
been,
I like what they offer, because they have,
Yeah.
I self-manage, so
Same here, yeah.
When they have that option where you can pay maybe for a month, right, for them to handle all your maintenance requests. That's what I wanted to do with Hemlane.
The one thing I would say, Santiago, so they have like the silver, what is it, bronze, silver, gold, right?
Yeah.
The silver's cheap. The bronze is where they'll do the maintenance scheduling. That used to be like an extra like 20%. It's now 2 to 3x the cost. They changed it recently. So like I have one premium A-, like class A-, I'll keep on that, but like, as I have the grandfather pricing, but I'll only use their cheap stuff going forward. But I will say it's a good platform, but they're trying to get into like, oh, now they want to do your accounting and they want to do your evictions, and some of it's paid by drink, and that's fine. But I think they're getting ahead of their skis. But their core platform, I would like USA, I would vouch for and say is pretty good. I will say this, like, if you looked at my tenants by age group, the tenants who are doing great with Hemlane are all sub 45. The tenants who are struggling with Hemlane are 45 to 55. And the tenants who said, fuck you, I'm going to mail you a check and you're going to like it, are 16 above. And that's okay, because I only have 1 or 2 months, right? But it's a tech platform. So, for what it's worth. So,
yeah. The other one too that I would have gone with. So I ended up opening several LLCs and bank accounts with my bank, with my local bank here. And but if I had not done that, I just want to go through the trouble. But if I had not done that, I probably would have gone with this other company called Baselane, because I think it's Baselane, if I'm not remembering incorrectly here. But they offer basically an online banking platform, and they give you a pretty good interest rate on your money, like in the 4 or 5s or so. So
Nice.
that would have been much better, and they're obviously catered to landlords, so it should be a smooth process. I can't vouch for them. I never tried them, but I just don't want to go through the trouble of canceling all my bank accounts and moving it to theirs. But it's worth a look if you haven't found the property manager yet, software that is.
Yeah, I can speak. I tried Baselane. I basically stuck with them, and I really they've partnered with a company that does banking for landlords. And it's really easy. You can open up as many savings accounts or checking accounts per entity. Like if you have different LLCs or if you have some in your personal name, you can open up as many as you want to. Like you can have, like in my state, you have to have the security deposits in a particular type of account. You can open an account and say security deposits and put them there. And you can open an account and say operations and put them there. And you can open, one called reserves and put, it's pretty good.
You're still on it?
Yeah. I'm still on it. In fact, the same tenant with the dog, right? I sent her a copy of a link to sign up for Baselane, because they do the payments and everything. And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do this, because she's like, hey, I'm using my work computer now. They don't let me to use it. And I found out from her previous property manager that she dropped a check off in the Dropbox. So, I'm kind of an electronic payment guy, so I'm gonna have to figure this out.
That's actually the reason you know what, that you just reminded me. That's one of the reasons I didn't also go with Base Lane, because it's all online. And I have one tenant that has to do a check deposit. He doesn't mail it to me, but he needs to deposit himself. He does not trust the internet or any application on his phone. So that's another reason I have to go with him.
I have one tenant that sends me Zelle, and the thing I like about Zelle is it's instant, right?
Yeah.
When they send it, you get it. With a lot of these companies that do the payment processing, it like takes 7 days to clear and all that stuff. And it's like Zelle, it's like they send it, you get a notice, it's there, right?
Yeah.
They're also backed by all the major banks, which is awesome, right?
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking we might use for this tenant with
that's
the
what
dog.
I'm using. For every other tenant, I'm using Zelle. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right. One of the problems. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The downside of Zelle is it's hard to keep track of what the payment is for.
Well, they Zelle it directly to the bank account that's associated to that property.
Well, when the tenants get late and stuff, and there's other expenses and stuff, it becomes hard to track down, and especially if you start having multiple tenants.
That's exactly the problem. Like with Base Lane, you can go in and set it up and say rent's due on the 1st, apply the late fee on the 5th, and it'll enforce all that. It'll send reminders. It'll get you out of that game. If you let them do Zelle, then they can send you like a partial payment or something.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's also the reason I went with a Zebo, because I could, and I haven't done this yet, but supposedly I can set up a Zebo so that I can send reminders of when the rent's due at minimum, right? I can send them an email that says rent is due, and when it's late, I can send them an email that says, hey, your rent's about to be late. It won't collect payments from them, but at least it sends a reminder to them. I could not do that with Hemley. So that's another reason I couldn't go with it.
We should, Santiago, we should talk about that offline, because I use Hemley, and they will send reminders. They'll automatically apply late fees. That's actually, I think, one of the strengths of the platform.
They do. No, you're right, Chris. They do, but you have to take payments from them.
You
have to set
totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. I've not taken payments from my tenants. They don't want to. They're not paying through the software app. They're just selling it to me, and I didn't want to change it up on them in the middle of a lease. So I said, keep paying with Zelle, but I was looking for a software that could at least remind them when it's due without having to make them pay on via the app, if that makes sense. So I was able to do that with Azibo. I was not able to do that with Hemlane. I spoke to somebody in Hemlane. I think I suggested it to them, so I'm sure they take feedback and go back and take it all into consideration. But yeah, like I said, I want to badmouth Hemlane. I wish I could do Hemlane. So just a little bit too pricey for me, and there's some very specific things that just didn't work for me. If I could have my choice, I would do Door Loop. That's the one that Matt uses. But that's expensive.
Door Loop?
Yeah. Matt loves that one. He says it has some very sophisticated financial features on it, so that he can just click on stuff and he knows exactly where his money's going.
I would actually say the other thing about Door Loop that I did a demo a couple weeks ago is that once you're in a large number of units and you're self-managing and you need something that'll also do maintenance management, it'll track work orders in progress. It'll provide your maintenance people with okay, it's Tuesday. Here are the work orders you have to go manage. And it'll group them by okay, here's the ones in this building, this building. I feel like once you scale up, if I ever, God forbid, if I ever get to 50, 60, 70, 100 units, I'll probably, I think Door Loop's the only option. I got a ways to go and a lot of pennies to save before I'm going to get there. But not for where I am now.
Yeah, that makes sense, because he has, I think, 170 plus units or something like that. Whereas
and more importantly, he's got a couple actual employees, right? He's got his own maintenance people, right? And he has to schedule them and track their progress and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, Dion, on the other hand, Dion has less number of properties on that he's managing through Hemlane, and he's obviously good with Hemlane. And I remember him saying he particularly likes the feature that I mentioned earlier, where you can just pay extra for the month for them to do their maintenance. So.
And he uses Thumbtack for maintenance, which I think was a great idea. But the first time I used maintenance Thumbtack, I had a maintenance guy threaten to come to my home and beat the crap out of me because apparently there was a misunderstanding on whether or not I liked his quote. So, but yeah, so.
I haven't tried Thumbtack yet. I just heard about it when I joined this community.
Hi everyone. Hi Frank. Sorry I missed when I was with the kids, and there was a lot of changes in my work schedule, so I may be popping in and out. But I was just to say on the renter application, I use Avail. If you heard of it, it's and I pay about $7 a month per unit. I own so far I own 4 properties, so that's an option if someone wanna explore. Now I don't know about the financial or the accounting application on that software, but so far it's working. So I've used it for 2 years. If that's just another option out there. And on the snake thing, I went to the property. I looked at it. I like you guys advised last week. I went and tried to find any gaps, especially on the driver vent outside. I put some extra on the end. I had to look for even like the pipes that goes outside and just try to screen on all those as well. Sealed a lot of places. There are smaller gaps here and there. So I use some caulking. I use a product called Bondo, and that one is something that I use for bigger gaps. So it's kind of it's immediate. So it has two parts, the epoxy and the hardener.
I was about to tell Sam his audio was getting bad, but I think it got like so bad.
Yeah.
You're breaking up a little bit, Sam, but we got the part about the Bondo. Yeah, we use Bondo quite a bit when we need to do patches in a hurry.
Wood repair.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm glad you can hear me now. Is it can you still hear me? Is it better now?
Yes,
better now.
Yeah, so a combination of Bondo and a combination of caulking outside. I didn't do anything from the inside. It was all outside. So yeah, I hope that helps. I sprayed some product for the snake thing, and so yeah, I hope that all that helps the tenant. And so yeah, that's kind of the update on the snake, and hope she feels better.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about it over during the week, and I mean that sounds like you did as much as you could possibly do. And I mean, depending on the size of the snake and things too, if there was a little nest of snakes somewhere already inside, she might find another one here or there, but at least you did what you could.
Yeah, and yeah, so it's good information to share with you guys. And yeah, on another hand, hopefully I'm closing on another property sometime soon this week. So yeah, so we'll start keep it going.
What market are you in?
I'm in Conroe, which is Conroe Willis area, which is an hour north of Houston, Texas.
Awesome.
Hey, Sam, no, go ahead.
I'll say, I got a quick question for you guys. So when you guys are saying Bondo, are you talking about the same like auto body filler stuff, or is it a completely different product?
Nope. Well,
It's the same, I think, Jack.
Yeah.
It's the same. They use it everywhere. So
They make there's the stuff for auto, which I think everybody was using. They do make a variant for wood that's a little bit more attuned to do like wood repair. Cause like I have an old house. It's got, some of the window sills are 80 years old and they're rotting and you fix it and it's awesome. I don't honestly know that it makes that big of a difference, but they do make a wood repair variant versus regular, but I frankly use both.
I mean, you guys are just giving me more ideas on how to fix different things with Bondo and fiberglass now.
Yeah, I mean, if you search like metal door repair, wood door repair, wood windowsill repair, I guarantee you 80% of them are going to involve some creative usage of Bondo.
You can fix anything with duct tape.
yeah, it gives
Use
you
it.
the ability to fix it, make it flat, and then gives you the ability to also like sand it
Yeah, you can work
and
it,
make it work it like the way that any rotten area, it just fills it very nicely and makes it like a part of the door or whatever you're working with.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of nice instead of having to change the whole thing. What I noticed that with this product, like I bought it 2 years ago, and it was the can was almost, I think it was almost full, and I opened it this time, and it was like almost half of it. So I'm not sure the inflation is working its way there.
Yeah, just be careful not to put too much hardener right away. That stuff will harden faster than you can do anything with it. We used to help it keep its consistency and not dry so fast, we used to carry around like an old window from a car, a flat piece of glass. If you mix it up on there, anything else you mix it up on, like cardboard or wood, it's going to absorb the Bondo right away and make it hard real fast. But if you mix it up on glass, it stays soft a little bit longer.
Hey, Troy, are you still there?
I don't see him. No, he had to leave actually. He was in the chat. He said he had to go.
Okay. I'll ask him maybe on the community. I wanted to see how he handles like lawn maintenance for a midterm. Is that something that I would handle, or somehow they leave it for them? I'll ask him on the community.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be your responsibility.
Yeah.
I would think so too. I mean,
It's
unless
kind
it's
of like
like
short term. It's all on you.
It is. I know.
The trade space is utilities. So like for my midterms, like I paid internet, but I made them pay if they were there for 3 months. If they were there from 3 months or more, they paid electricity and gas. If they were there for 3 months, it was a toss up whether I'd pay utilities or not.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think we made it through. We made it through everybody.
I got good news. I got my last empty place filled. I got tenant in there, so I'm set for the winter now. I don't have to worry about it. Hopefully.
Oh, sweet.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, that's my big win.
That is good
Did
news.
you offer any incentives or anything like that?
No, got it at the same it was at last time, so I didn't take a bump up or down, just straight across. But yeah.
Actually,
Well,
Frank,
good.
if it's okay, like maybe if I can ask one last question, like, is anybody taking any bumps or offering any incentives? So, for example, we were able to increase rents by $50, whatever, on most units on our medium-term rental, our exec, I actually decreased by $50 to get somebody in exchange for moving in within 7 days of when they applied, right? And I'm debating offering the incentive I've been offering to our tenants historically is, hey, look, I'm gonna increase rents every year or two based on insurance and taxes and things like that. If you want to do a 2-year lease, you can lock it in, right? I'll probably continue that, but just curious how other folks are seeing rents, rent growth, discounts, incentives, et cetera.
As far as us personally, we'll have more news in the coming weeks. Like I said, we got 2 units getting their minor fixes done and the one tenant moving out this month. So we're going to find out one way or another. We almost, I mentioned earlier, the 2 units in the triplex taking a while to rent. We were on the verge of offering a half month off, but luckily we found tenants just before we made that decision.
Yeah, so for me, and it depends on the market, right? Because I have a triplex in New Jersey, and a lot of the Northeast is still doing pretty well with rents, and rents keep going up. Now, having said that, I didn't really raise it that much. I think I raised it $25 on 2 of the families, right? Just to kind of keep it going, make sure I don't fall back on that. But the ones in Florida, since some of those leases are due soon, I was looking around and it looks like rents are pretty much stable at this point. So I don't really expect to be raising in Florida, but raising in Jersey. So yeah, very market dependent for me anyway.
Thanks.
No incentives. I
Yeah,
think
my
when you get to the
Florida-
point with incentives, you probably maybe the market's going through some hiccups probably if you get to that point.
Yeah, my goal was to both get people locked in this summer to get us through the election and any recession issues, even if I had to compromise, which I only did in one spot, but I was just risk averse.
I don't know. I know there's a few people from Florida too that joined this community. I don't know if they're on this call, but I wonder if they're going through the same thing or they're seeing the same thing. It's a very different market in Texas and Florida.
Florida's rough. It took me longer. My one Florida property outside of Pensacola, it took a little while.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to stay in Florida for my buy box. So I'm still looking, but not really seeing anything right now. And I'm kind of wary about investing in Florida because theoretically the prices keep going down, right? Inventory keeps growing, prices keep going down. So I'm afraid to buy something too early, but then at the same time, I kind of think back to the training, right? Like make sure you buy it right, so that if there is a downturn, you've already accounted for that, right? So
I will say from personal opinion experience, how you buy the asset really determines the profitability for the next X years, right? I mean, yeah, you can tune it and make some fine tunes, but the easiest way to make profitability is to buy it right. I say that after rushing in maybe a couple of properties sooner than I should have.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know better. I rushed into one myself. But I mean, I got mixed feelings about it. It appreciated fairly well. It's a cheap property, so it doubled in price, so that's good. But insurance and HOAs are up, so I'm not really making much more on it than I was when I first bought it, you know?
I've heard that from a few folks that invest in Florida, is when they ran their numbers, they were willing to go. They didn't have an alligator, but they were willing to take a property that didn't have huge cash flow because it was a good appreciation market. And then property taxes and insurance went up way more than they thought it would.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mine was
insurance
the
doubled.
opposite. Insurance doubled, yeah. Yeah, mine was the opposite. I had good cash flow, but then the pandemic came around. My, all the prices went up, so my property doubled in price. But because of all the insurance going up and the HOAs and all these assessments, I think I might actually be making less than I was when I first bought it, So I'm even actually considering maybe 1031 exchanging it or something like that. But
Is the value still there?
the value's still there. It's, I mean, I bought it for 90. It's worth around 170 right now. So there's a little bit of room there. But with I don't also want to sell it too quick and then, laws get put in place that mitigate all those extra expenses in some way. I heard there's might be some stuff coming down the pipeline, but who knows?
What part of Florida are you in, Santiago?
I'm in South Florida, but the properties themselves are in Central Florida, like Kissimmee, Orlando, and Winter Park.
Okay, okay.
So I'm hopeful that because they're close to like parks, they'll retain some value.
Yeah, and you're inland, which probably helps you on your insurance too.
Yeah, I've knock on wood, it's been pretty blessed with the hurricanes. I haven't had any major issues.
Yeah, we were just watching the one that just made landfall. Luckily, we were fine, but it's a whole new thing. Especially living in the Pacific Northwest, it's like you don't pay attention to hurricanes. Well, yeah, you do when you have a house in Florida. Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't think the people in Dallas know how to spell hurricane.
I was going to say, have you guys seen any softening in prices around your market? Are you seeing it stable? I'm getting mixed ideas. I see some articles talking about, prices going back to 2019 levels, but I just don't think that's something that is going. And so just thoughts of if you're in the Sun Belt or somewhere else, what you guys.
I would offer, if you have a search on Zillow or Redfin where you're looking at properties that are, have been on the market for over 60 days, after the longest time, and I call that the wish pricing properties, I'm starting to see those start to decline, right? I think, stuff that's new in the market, whether it's super nice or it's like super affordable, like, it's like sub 300, sub 400, that market's still pretty strong. Stuff's going for about asking or maybe a little more, but I've given up, even though I built my portfolio kind of going after stuff that was, like, for lack of a better word, new in the market. I've kind of migrated away from that to going after stuff that's been on the market for a while, stuff that's ugly. I call them the unicorns. And a lot of my properties are kind of those properties, but so that's kind of where I hunt. And there was a lot of wish pricing for a long time, and I'm starting to see those numbers come down. Not, occasionally a couple of big jumps, moderately, but in general, moderately. But I think the market is starting to realize, like, I listened to Zuber, and he's got one guest who says, we're going to have a real estate boom. Another guest who says, like, that woman with the blonde hair who says, hey, she's preparing for, like, a super recession. I'm probably a little more in her camp. I think we're going to have a bumpy road still for another 6 months, maybe a year. But I am starting to see a little bit of the wish list stuff. Pricing is at least going away. I can't speak to the rest of it.
What's your market, Chris?
I'm active in Central PA, Lancaster, and the Philadelphia suburbs, and I'm kind of monitoring the North Carolina, Raleigh area.
Have you tried offering seller financing on those properties that stay long in the market?
Yeah, I did my first seller financing deal back in December. It was awesome.
That is awesome.
It didn't do as well as I could have, and I'm about to do a second deal probably next month. So yeah, it's totally, and I've got a cool crib sheet I developed after listening to everybody. Like, and like, yeah, hey, like, I can pay you this price with current interest rates, but based on current interest rates, I can pay you this much, but that probably doesn't interest you. But if you want your pricing and you give me this interest rate, I can do that, right? I got a little bit weak on term though. Like, I originally was asking for 10-year, and I think I settled for like a 3-year. But next one I'm going to go for a 5 or a 10-year, right? So, but yeah, no, I will say this, like I last year I pitched 15 properties on seller financing. Most said no, like, hey, I don't know what that is. My accountant doesn't understand it, therefore it's evil. I had one guy who was 82 came to me and said, Chris, I'd love to do this, but I'm going to be dead in 2 years. So like, no, I won't accept a 5-year term. Right. And I'm like, okay. And then, yeah, the one that actually went was one that I went through like 5 rounds of like, I had to walk away from the table twice. And it was like, a family, like the father bought it for the son was screwing around with it and wasn't like renovating it like he was supposed to. And finally the father's like, well, fuck it. Like, I want this, I just want this off the books. Right. I should have asked for a 5 or 7-year term. I think I got a 3 or 4 or so. But I got interest only. I think it was 3 or 4 years. I actually paid all the interest at closing. Right, just like I don't want to deal with you. Pardon my language, guys. I don't want to deal with you fuckers for another 3 or 5 years. We'll see you when I'm ready to finance, right? And we just got the permitting approved last week to kind of start renovations and turn it into a triplex. So.
That's awesome. So your terms.
Oops, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
All right.
Do you buy stuff that needs a lot of work?
I've gone through the whole journey. I was talking with Dion at this out in Vegas. Like, I started buying turnkey, and it was great. But except for like one unicorn I got lucky on, it was okay. And then I started buying stuff that need a little bit of work, and I started to build a maintenance, like a network of contractors in Lancaster, and then we just kind of kept, it's a trajectory, right? Because you realize, ooh, like the stuff I work on, I make more money there, right? And so then I bought like my real estate agent in Lancaster had bought a property. She's an STR girl, hardcore, and she bought a property. She was a 4-plex. She gutted it to the studs, was rebuilding it, and then the township passed a law like, yeah, no STRs, no way. And so I bought it from her and converted it into like a nice, a really nice, like, B+, A-, like 4-plex. And that came online a month ago. And I'm like, after like, dealing with construction costs and construction overruns, now I'm like, oh, wow, this is actually really good money. So I'm kind of gravitating away from turnkeys to more like where you do work, but it took time because like I've got Lancaster so dialed in now. I know the best plumber. They know me. I know the guys. I know the difference between the guys who fix plumbing problems in the building, like in the toilet and the kitchen, versus the guys who go in the basement and clear the sewer line and the sewer line clogs, and the electricians for repairs versus electricians for, renovations. I know the HVC guy who, yeah, his day job I could never afford, but he moonlights on the weekends, and I can have him come in. And once you build that, you can be really effective at like renovations and doing stuff. But it just takes time to build that network, right? Which took me 2.5 years. And now we started a second city, which is closer to where I live, so I had a bit of a head start there, and so we're kind of doing that. So I think that's a natural evolution of every investor. You probably start closer to turnkey, and you do that, you get a taste. If you like it, you move into, you're like, okay, I can take a little more on. And then eventually, now, that being said, it's not without some scarring, right? And some lessons learned, but the profitability is, I mean, I don't know, I'm sure Frank and Matt can tell a lot more compelling stories than I can, but it's just a lot more profitable, right? And actually the bigger thing for me is it scares off a lot of other competitors in the market, right? Like my first turnkey was a converted church built in 1850 or 1890, converted into a 4-plex. In theory, was available. Conventional financing could have gone after it. But in 2021, the mortgage lenders were like, I can't get a comp for a converted church. Like, no. So I had to explore commercial financing. And then once you figure that out, you're like, oh my God, it's so much easier than regular financing. And you can go after anything. They're like, oh yeah, we'll do a 5-plex, but we'll do a duplex, right? It's a good deal. And it's hunting. It's like what's that book, like Red Ocean, Blue Ocean, like hunt where others are afraid to hunt. And and with construction, like unless somebody's got a lot of cash in their pocket, people who are looking for conventional financing can't buy something that's going to get majorly renovated, and then you got to deal with, like, maybe you deal with construction loans, maybe you fund it out of pocket, but because that other stuff makes it harder, it makes other people less likely to want to go after it, which means it makes it more likely more profitable if you do it right. But that's been my journey, right or wrong.
Chris, did you have to get the church rezoned?
No, I bought the church like at the tail end of the process. Like the head of the architecture department at Millersville University bought it as his pet project, and he was like in the last 2 months of construction when his wife got cancer, and so I unfortunately, Frank, he did all the work on that. I just got lucky, kind of pick it. The win there for me was nobody else could get it financed, and then I figured out, like, oh, I wonder if a commercial lender would do it. And then the guy who was building it said, oh, why don't you talk to my bank that gave me the construction loan? And they're like, oh yeah, we know that property. That's a great property. You're gonna make a ton of money there. Yeah, we'll loan you money, no problem. So yeah, no, I'm not that good.
So as a church, probably it was like a shell, and you have to do everything. So what was the cost to move that from being what it was to a fourplex, from church to a fourplex?
I will put the address in the thing. I'd encourage you guys to go to Zillow, and one of the apartments is on Zillow. The photos are there. It's stunning. I've never lived in anything so nice in my life, right? He bought it for ballpark 215K. He probably put 600 to 800K in it. I mean, it's not a nice unit. It's a, like, Architectural Digest unit, right? And I bought it for a bit on leaning forward and holding my breath. I bought it for 1.1 million, and it had a cash flow return of 7%. It's now cash flowing at 18% because I've normalized the rents, and I've made a few minor improvements. And again, it's a bit of a unicorn. That's the advantage of hunting unicorns, right? They're really hard, but if you make them work, they can be really profitable. But yeah, so.
That's great. One other question about your seller financing deal. Can you tell us the terms again? So was it you said the balloon was 2-3 years, and then the interest, was it interest only?
So I think it's a blur, right? Because we went through so many iterations, right? I think I landed on approximately 3 or 4 year term, and either no interest for that time, or like 1%. So like it was pretty nominal. And I think I gave them 10% at close, which means that it's a 450K property. So I gave 45K close. I prepaid the next 3 years of payments because they were a little sleazy, just to be honest, right? I wanted to be done with them. And then and I went to my local real estate attorney, who I had been working with for some other projects. I said, hey, build me a note, build me a mortgage document. I think I paid a couple $100 for that, and that was that. And then they actually did not file the mortgage or the note, and I'm still a little ambiguous on the difference there, but they still did not file that with the township. So frankly, as far as like my financial environment is concerned, like nobody knows that loan exists right now. I will eventually, I'll disclose it, right? Because I don't want to screw up relationships with my lenders. But yeah. So, but I would tell you, the hardest part about the seller financing is just getting people comfortable with the concept, and understanding that it's a time process, and that you can't do it through realtors, because they're as good as they are. You got to have a conversation with the people Like I got to the point, I'm like, look, I'm gonna write a 1-page like sell sheet. I'm gonna say, hey, like here's how I look at the property. Very simple, right? Written for somebody who could, somebody who could, if you're 68, 60, you could understand, you could read it and understand it. And had to really simply lay out the options. Like, look, I love your property. Your price seems a little high. And at current interest rates, it costs me this much a month, and I can only make this much, which means it's kind of an alligator. And that doesn't really, so like for me to make it work with current traditional financing, if you want to cast a closing, like here's what I could pay. And I'm sure you don't like that number. But if you were to hold the financing, since you own the asset and you have no debt, if you give me, this interest rate and this payment, we could actually make your price work. Like, what do you guys want to do? Right. And now, listening to others and Zuber and others, there's probably a third option, which I'm going to tee up in this next deal, which is like, hey, there's a hybrid in the middle, which is like, I pay you 10% and then, I'll get a mortgage for, what does Zuber call it, like 10, 40, 50 or something like that? Like
50, 40, 10.
Yeah. So I'll give you 10% and you'll hold a mortgage for 40% and you'll hold that paper. And then I'll get another mortgage, which by the way would have first position. So just get comfortable that you're not at the front of the bus for 50%. So you'll get 60% of your value at closing. And then you'll hold a mortgage 40%, get a monthly check. It's great. You avoid taxes. It's great. Never done that. I have to figure that out before I make this offer next week. So
Yeah, and that's great, and great ideas. Thank you. Yeah. I just recently talked to a seller who actually was open to seller financing, but then realized that they have actually still a mortgage. So I believe the only option there was the 50, 40, 10, and I think the only lender so far is Velocity who does that. But I'm not sure.
There are others who do those, but I think they're the dominant one. But the question is, how much is the mortgage, right? If it's 70%, yeah, that's the only option. If it's 10 or 20%, then you have more flexibility. Probably you could comp that in cash or whatever. But yeah.
And that's when that's when the communication stopped, because that was my question to the seller, that how much mortgage do you have? And since then I haven't heard back. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they that.
I'm not sure, but I think there are ways to figure that out. Like I started to go down that road. Like there are data services like I think Zuber mentioned once, like where you can go and like they'll tell you like, oh, show me the properties in this area that have no mortgage, right? And but I think I do simple math, and I simply go to Zillow and I say, show me the history, and like, okay, if you bought it in 2005 or before, you're probably done or almost done with your mortgage right now. You could have refinanced, you could have got a second mortgage. But I imagine you can go to the township and you could pull out the liens on the property and figure that out if you wanted to. So I think there's ways to figure that out. And I spitball it with Zillow.
Chris, have you tried coffee closers by any chance? Are you familiar with that?
I experimented with those for a little while.
Did you try their seller financing, the creative?
No, I did not. I mean, I was using them more for kind of just targeting, and they were okay. But I had such narrow criteria that it was interesting, but it didn't help me too much. And they're really focused on more major metros. As much as it pains me to say, Philly's not exactly a hot market that they were really interested in. And I'm in the suburbs of Philly, so it wasn't really a good fit. But no, I like the product, and that was good. If I was in Phoenix or Atlanta, I'd probably be using them today, right? So
yeah, they have a new product, and I mean they're not sponsoring me or anything like that, but I'd like to shout them out because I think they're a newer startup, and they've been pretty good with communication and questions and stuff like that. And I recently subscribed to their seller financing. Now, I kind of just took advantage of the sale that they had. That was more like it was like a year sale, so I haven't had a chance to deep dive in it. But I was curious if you were familiar with that, because that's what they do, right? They look at the properties and they find what's free and clear, and they do the calculations for you. And I was just wondering if you had some experience on that.
No, they reached out to me probably almost a year ago. They're like, hey, would you like to try the platform? We're kind of growing it. And I was like, sure, why not? Like, I think they charged me. They were great. They were super responsive, good, really communicative. They're like, hey, give us $10 just so we can get the guy, for like a 2-month trial. I'm like, sure, why not? So like I said, good. It was still a little bit in like alpha beta at the time, but I liked it. It was a good product. It wasn't what they were offering at the time, didn't really work for my market because I'm not in a major class, tier 1 market. But no, I like the product. I thought it was really good. And more importantly, to your point, right? The people who were running it seem like the kind of people I'd want to work with. So
Yeah. I would suggest taking a second look at it because I think they just expanded their market to all 50 states, and they're pretty granular with their data. Again, I'm not getting any commission from them, but I
Cool.
really would be interested to see you with given the experience you have with solar finance and testing out that product and see you might be able to make suggestions. Like, they're pretty nimble, right? They're a small startup, pretty nimble. So suggestions that you make might be super beneficial and quick turnaround on them and benefit everybody else. So
the challenge I have, which Frank heard a couple sessions ago, is that I was chasing 3 deals last year. I thought I'd get one of them, and then in the last month of the year, like all 3 popped, and like an idiot, I went after all 3 of them. So I am so cash poor this year. It's not even funny. I'm like, So, but I will check it out in the next couple of months as I kind of refill my piggy bank. But that sounds like a great idea. And I'm really excited. I'm excited that their product is taking off. So
yeah. Take a look at their free version. They have I think they have one market that it's free for everybody. Like, and definitely play around with that.
Sorry, Frank, didn't mean to drag us a little longer.
Oh, no, I'm good with it. Thank you both for everything.
Lollygagging.
That too.
This is good stuff because that's one of the things that I got to thinking when you mentioned that, Troy, was when you were talking about your template, right? That's kind of what they have is they have a template where in plain English they explain what seller financing is. Like their goal is they have something that they can.
That tells them.
You have to sell it on a personal level, probably to somebody who's over 40, if not over 55, which means like, the real estate agent, like agreement of sale, like, you have to get in the right mindset. You have to communicate it, and you have to write it up in a fashion that they can understand. Something that would be, somebody who reads, I'll be a little bit crass. Someone who reads AARP can understand it on a first pass. Like you have to just gumpify it, right? And that's what kind of started to move forward. And I had to get my real estate agents out of it. And I think my agents are great. I got, one of them is an investor, and the other one is not an investor, but is like so, gung-ho hungry, like will do whatever I ask. Like she's great, but like this is not the kind of thing you can have an intermediary, because it goes from you to your agent to their agent and their perceptions and biases to to the seller. You have to be like, no, I'm going to send you a copy, and then I want to have a meeting with the seller, right? And then I think that's again, like I've got an experience sample size of 1, so calibrate my comments in terms of how much of an expert I am not. But I think that's kind of how you have to run this. It has to be more of a person, and you have to be like, look, like, this may not work for you, but if you want this price, the only way it kind of makes sense financially is to, with some of these options, and let's talk about it, right? So.
No, you're right though, because that's actually what they told me, right? Is that you're gonna have a lot more success from, and I lost my headphones, so hopefully the audio is a little bit.
Yeah, you're good.
But they told me that it works most frequently when it's in person.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. Because it's a non-traditional approach. You gotta be like, hey, like you'll get less cash up front, and you'll pay a lot less in taxes, right? And I actually think the giving them options is kind of cool. I think that people value that, right? It's not like you're saying, well, no, I won't pay your price, but here you must take this. It's like, okay, look, you know, if you want to all the cash at closing, here's today's interest rate, here's how much the property's worth from a cash flow perspective, here's what I can pay. Otherwise, you know, it's an alligator. And would you buy a property if you had to put $4,000 a month into it on top of that? No, I don't think so, right? Okay, fine. So, you know, here's options that make sense, right? You know, lower price, current interest rate, cash at closing, right? Or, you know, less cash at closing, an annual revenue stream, and you hold the note for, I actually think what I'm actually finding is the biggest challenge in negotiating with people is not the interest rate. Because, you know, if they do seller financing, you can give them something closer to their price. It's the term, because a lot of the people I'm dealing with, like the guy on the property I'm going to make a deal with next week, he's probably, I'm guessing, 82. He probably is missing about half of his teeth. His wife is, you know, 2 steps from the grave. And I'm just like, oof, like, you know, can I really have a conversation with this guy around a 10-year term? I don't know, right? So it's like you get in these conversations like, okay, like that was my conversation. The other one, I'm like, well, these guys will probably walk if I want 5 or 10 years. So I got to be a little aggressive. I had to get aggressive on term because, you know, they didn't want to wait 10 or 15 years for the cash. Then you're asking yourself questions like, okay, like, you know, what do I think the interest rate environment and how can I refinance this, right? So the property I bought on the seller financing was actually a mixed use. It's one commercial and one residential. And I'm like, it's a commercial loan to refinance. It's gonna be a pain in the butt. But if I'm gonna convert this and rezone it to because it's in this area, I can rezone it to a residential multi, no problem. If I refinance, if I get this flipped to a duplex or a triplex, I can do conventional financing, which is a lot easier. But I got to get it, you know, I got to get it done within the term. And so, you know, you get into those conversations. There's a lot more complexity on you in terms of really testing your risk tolerance. But you know, it's super cool, right? I mean, to be able to like, I didn't have to deal with the bank. I didn't have to, you know, I didn't have any of that nonsense, right? So
I asked Zuber about it on when he joined one of these school Q&As, and because my concern is the terms, right? Like the 3-year, 5-year. That's too short for me because I don't know what I would do after that. And he mentioned he does no less than 10 years, and
yeah,
that you know you could essentially you're creating your own contract, right? So somebody of that age,
yeah,
you stipulate that you know the remainder of the payments would go to their children, right?
yeah.
So
No,
you
yeah, totally true. The first seller financing deal I made, he was 80s. I'm like, I use that argument and I'm like, hey, like, he's like, well, Chris, I'm like 82. Like, I'm not gonna be in there in 10 years. I'm like, well, you can pass your kids. He's like, I hate my kids. I don't want to give them the money. I'm like, okay, fine. So, yeah, no, I mean, it's a good point. Like, you know, it's a more complex sale. And unfortunately, the sales agents that the industry provides us, the real estate agents, are really unfamiliar with this. Which just one last point. What's interesting is if you Google the Michigan, so you know every state has their standard real estate contracts. If you Google the Michigan real estate contract, they actually have an amendment or an addendum in the standard real estate contract for seller financing. They call it something different. I forget the name, but it's actually a standard part or addendum or optional addendum and clause in the Michigan real estate sale contract. So like I Googled around like, you know, hey, how do I deal with this sales contract? And so it's more common than you think, but it's a complex sale. Like I'm in Pennsylvania, like the agents here, they're idiots. They just don't have a clue about it, right? So, you know, I had to kind of step in and kind of take over, right? So anyway, just food for thought.
It's very interesting that you mentioned earlier that you paid zero or minimum interest rate, but you also paid them interest ahead of time, like 2-3 years interest ahead of time. So that will
that was not a good financial move. But literally, like these guys, I'm in Philly, and you know we're all roughly Italian here. They were just kind of sleazy, right? They were a little sleazy. And I didn't trust them, and I just wanted to be done with them, right? I'm like, you know, they were hard to deal with during the sales process, and that was my only rationale. It wasn't a good business move, but it was a peace of mind move.
Yep.
I also attempted to claim all that interest in the year of sale. So if you think about it, I bought this property 4 days before the end of 2023, and I'm claiming accelerated depreciation, which means of the 400 and some $1,000, I'm going to try and claim, I think it's what, 80%. So you subtract land value, I'm going to get 200, maybe as much as 300,000 of depreciation on that. Plus, I'm going to claim, another 35 grand in interest payments. I'm going to try. We'll see if my accountant allows it. And yeah, so to try and offset my other income from last year. So it's all. It's funny how much tax strategy has become a part of my vocabulary since I started doing real estate. So
important.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I appreciate all that information.
where do you want to go next, Frank? I know we're keeping people up late.
Yeah, we are. Huh? Looks like
one of your longer sessions, I think. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. Totally fine with me. And the people that are here, I'm sure they're getting some good information out of this too. This is about normal for us. 3 hours, pretty close.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. We didn't really have too many different topics to bring up today, but once we get rolling, everybody just keeps adding and steers the meeting. So that's really helpful. And then you have people just jumping in to cause trouble like Mark.
Yeah.
Oh, you are awake, huh?
Just wait for comments that are directed towards me, and then I'll chime in.
Well, we were just going to say good night.
What? It's early.
Hey, Frank, I think you need to start or end every session with something to make one thing that will make everybody feel better is at least one or two people on the call have to talk about something that bad had happened to them. So everybody's like, okay, I know I've got issues, but at least I'm not that bad. Like, I think we should share. I think more seriously, I think when I listened to Matt, he was like, wow, I've got a cash on cash of 28%. And I'm like, okay, well, I suck then, right? Because I'm struggling to get to 7, right? But it would be good to share some of the failures or some of the speed bumps, maybe as my daughter would say, just to let everybody know that yeah, this is kind of normal. When you're starting, yeah, your first property will not be 22% cash on cash. You might be lucky to get a 6% cash on cash, but as long as you can grow it, right, then that's good, right? But I'd love to hear more of that because that would have helped me a lot when I was starting, and frankly, it would help me a lot now. So I'm not the only one who feels like they're a complete F up. Anyway, food for thought. So
no,
Chris, you realize that Matt doesn't include the vacancy and maintenance as much in his calculation, right?
yeah, I'm not dissecting it. I'm not dissecting it, but yeah, I totally get that, right? But he's so far. He and Zuber are so far up the maturity curve that it's not a fair comparison. You almost want a benchmark that says hey, is what I'm seeing normal? If I'm in my first 2-3 years and I'm seeing X and Y, is that normal? Yeah, probably, right? If I'm buying turnkey, should I be upset I'm not getting 22% cash on cash? No, you should probably be happy you're getting a positive cash on cash, right? If you're doing, what I mean? It would be interesting to have some of that more. And I feel like that's how the influencer space has changed, right? Because you got guys like Brandon Turner saying going a year ago from going if you're not, yeah, I'm buying 30 and 50 units, I'm syndicating now to you should try and get 2 or 3 units, right? I feel like everybody's realizing that we have to help people get started and give them a realistic bar, not oh, you should be getting 22% cash on cash, and you should be jumping from 2 units into syndication. I feel like there's a more meaningful benchmark that we should be giving people to help them calibrate. Like, okay, am I on a good path? Yeah. If you're positive, if you're buying at 2 to 5% cash on cash, and you see a path to get it to 8 or 10. Now, obviously, you normalize for your market and stuff, right? That's probably okay, right? Like I'd love to see some of that to help people get calibrated, because it didn't exist in 2021. It was like, and I wonder if that will give people more peace of mind to get more comfortable making these investments. Anyway, just my humble opinion. So
one of the things, just to kind of add to that real quick, is I've seen, I think Dion does this, and I may join his community. I don't know. I'm still kind of I'm on the same page, right? I'm kind of low on cash to be subscribing to everybody's community, so I'm kind of still figuring out if it's Matt or Dion or whatnot. But anyway, I think I believe what Dion does is he, in some of his meetups, or well, online meetups, he does like deal evaluations, which I think would be something that we can consider doing, right? From each of the market of the school members. Maybe go over a particular deal that they're either considering, or just as an exercise, do a search, find the property, and see how to run the numbers, right? That would be very helpful, not only to me, but also a lot of like the beginner, but the early starters, to see how to do that, right? If I was just starting, that's the first thing I'd want to see is, what are you doing? How are you getting to Zillow? Are you got the MLS? Are you calculating? How do you find the rent? How do you find the insurance cost? How do you find what it's going to take to fix it up? Do you need to fix it up? So I think Dion does some of that. I heard him on some of his YouTube videos that he occasionally goes through deal evaluations on his platform. So might be something to consider too.
Yeah, to both of your points, well, it's still fresh in my mind. Santiago, the Dion's members only, you can subscribe to that. It's like $2.99. And then you can jump on those members only calls, and that's what we do there. And then so he's always hoping one of us will bring a deal, because he doesn't like to look at his deals because he's afraid he's going to find something to buy. So and then Chris, you were like reading my mind about hearing the horror stories, right? I was talking earlier when we just started out that, I personally, we're going through a lot right now, but through the week, I was hearing some other people's stories. People had contacted me, and we talked about their journeys, and they've been through so much worse than we have, and not to, I mean, it's cool.
We're not celebrating it, but we're just calibrating, right? Like, yeah.
And that's what, that's what we're about. My channel's about talking about all the mistakes and all the lessons and working through them and stuff like that to help people stay motivated and stay positive. So we'll get to some of that stuff. And as far as, us analyzing any deals and stuff on this meeting, I think maybe we'll put it out there and actually do it in a different meeting, because it is going to be kind of a, I need practice for one, doing whiteboards and sharing screens and stuff like that. But if you guys are more up to speed on that stuff, you guys could take control of that part of it.
Frank, I gotta admit, I hit a low point. Like, I got so stressed over some of the stuff going on. Like, I started watching YouTube videos. Like, there's these eviction guys that, these are professional eviction companies. I started watching those to watch them like do evictions, most of which, oddly enough, were in the Sun Belt, which I thought it was interesting. I felt a lot better after that. I'm like, okay, my tenants, my units, not that bad. Not that bad. We can work through this, right? But it was a guilty pleasure for sure. So
yeah, I know. And I was talking to Mikey the other day, telling him sometimes I'll jump on Matt's live and listen for a few minutes and start to feel really horrible about the way I'm investing. So I have to turn it off for a while, recalibrate, and come back another day.
I think Matt mentioned in the last maybe two live streams that when he started, also his deals were like, 5 to so he mentioned the same thing, and with time, as he grew and his knowledge, so now he started to make more cash on cash. But yeah, his start is he mentioned he did a couple of those at the beginning as well. So shouldn't feel bad about we shouldn't feel bad about what we
Yeah, I think that's right. But I think it would be good for people to hear that more often, right? Because I think, Matt, a lot of folks are trying to get people excited about the opportunity, which I totally think is right. But like, I think there's some benefit. I think Frank's done a nice job helping us kind of people think about like the journey when you're in the first 2 or 3 years. Because like Zuber's like, yeah, the first 5 years suck. But we never really talk about what suck really means. And I'd like to hear a little more, just so I know that I'm not sucking more than maybe we need to be sucking. Food for thought, right? So
Yeah, and hoping that I get to the point, and we all get to the point where, in another couple of years, the cash flow is steady, and we can let people know that it really does get better after 4 or 5 years. So
I will tell you this, like this fourplex I bought that was going to be a short-term rental, and then the seller did, the township changed the rules, which was totally unexpected. And we went like, I don't know, we went like 30 or 40 grand over budget, probably more than that, but I'm just intentionally not tracking it. And I will say this, like when you go to rent it, like don't be shy about pushing the limits. If you've invested and you've got a nice unit, don't be shy about like testing limits. Like, okay, yeah, I planned on 1,300, but you know what? What if I put it on Facebook and Zillow for 1,400 or 1,450? If it doesn't work in a week or two, I'll lower it, right? We did that and we got the higher rents. And fast forward 2 months later, and I'm like, holy shit, like I'm making 2 or 3 grand a month from this unit, right? And I'm like, once it finishes, it's like, oh, now I get it. Like this is really nice, right? But it was 9 months of pain, right? Trying to get there.
Yeah,
And that was, I think that's a good case, right? Because that was like, we bought it, it was mid construction, we finished it. If you buy it and then you're going to do the construction tip to tail yourself, that could be even longer. And if you got tenants in it, and you got to evict them. But like, there is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But yeah, it definitely, it's definitely a journey.
Yeah, we just got to hang in there.
Yeah. Be patient and persistent. And I would say don't take anything personally. Like, as long as you're professional and respectful of everybody, right? Tenants, contractors, everybody. I think you can't go wrong there.
I didn't get any taller, and I'm still bald. So that's my bad stuff for the week.
Yeah. If you figure out to solve that taller or balder thing, I'd like to talk to you about it.
As long as I'm younger than Frank, though, that's my only thing I can say. I'm younger than Frank.
That's one thing you can count on. You'll always be younger than me, and you'll always be shorter than me too.
Not if I'm on Wishing shoulders. Not when I jump on Wishing or Curtis.
Hey, I was going to say this morning on your live with those 3 guys, that one guy sounded so much like Chris. I thought it was Chris talking.
Which guy?
I forget his name. Was it Jonathan or
Osha? The guy that was talking mainly about the fractional real estate?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I gotta go back and
meet Chris Frank or another Chris?
No, Chris Wissing. He's another investor we know up over here in California. Yeah. I jumped on Mark's call this morning and I could have swore Chris was talking, but it was a different man.
Yeah, he's a super good guy on X. You got to get his hat. It says real estate guru. He said it starts a lot of conversations for him.
Oh,
like,
nice.
And then he's starting to dabble in fractional real estate stuff because I guess he's tired of telling his new clients about just sitting on the sidelines and kind of waiting. And but yeah, he's just dabbling in that and kind of testing the waters on that.
Nice.
The Bears won. The Bears won this past week.
Yeah, I was gonna write and congratulate you. You better enjoy that win. That's the last one this year.
Dude, they won without an offensive touchdown. It's only going to get better from here.
They're learning how to play without their offense. That's not good.
Oh, hey, they'll be fine.
All right, you guys, I think we'll end it there unless there's any
Oh,
other thoughts.
Frank, I was wondering if I could ask Chris a question.
No, Mikey, good night. Yeah, what you got? What you got?
Well, I was just wondering, as your team grows and you think about gifts, how do you set that up where you're kind of growing as a landlord, but then your team grows as well? How do you kind of do gifts as your team grows?
Or do you do gifts to agents and property managers and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And you were directing that to Chris?
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah, so I I only really got hardcore into this in 2021. I've generally not done that. I did start to send like holiday gifts to my there's 1, 2, 3. There's 3 agents who are like meaningful to me in terms of like, one of them not an investor at all, but just will, crawl over broken glass and lava to kind of make deals happen. So like, and one's an investor and the other one's just kind of like knows everybody in a 100-mile radius. So, different types of tools. So I've started to do like holiday gifts to them over the holiday. I never had a team until like 6 or 8 months ago when we hit like 19 units. I'm like, I kind of struck a deal with a guy I knew, frankly, I've known since high school. He's like a part-time maintenance guy. So I've been a little bit aggressive with him on gifts. Like, I gave him a $500 Christmas bonus. I'm financing his car. Not an expensive car, like I think a 5 to 10 grand Ford Escape, 10 years old. Because like hiring him was a game changer for me, because otherwise like I got these contractors and like, if you want to go do a minor repair, it's like, $300 and $150, and you couldn't find contractors to do it. And he's kind of a general handyman and he's trustworthy. He's really good with tenants. And to the point where I had one problem tenant in the furnished unit. It was an entitled banker. He just pissed me off every time I talked to him. He dealt with him, and I'm paying him 40 or 50 bucks an hour, but he's saving me a ton for all the stuff he's doing. The hardest part is just, I need, if I had 40 or 50 units, I could probably hire him full time. That would be a win-win, but he's got to balance his time between his, other contractor he works for and me. But I think you have to tailor it to, who you're working with, right? If it's a contractor you have an arm's length relationship with, a personal relationship with, I think, small stuff's fine. I think agents who are helpful, small gifts are fine. Agents who bring you deals, I think you should be gifting them pretty heavy, right? Agents who bring you off-market deals, you should be offering them your small children. And reliable, trustworthy maintenance people, maybe not your children, maybe your future children, but like, those it's all about the value they bring, right? So anyway, that's a humble opinion on my approach.
Yeah, thanks. Good to know.
Back to you, Frank. Actually, you should ask Frank, because Frank's a contractor, right? So you should be asking like, hey, Frank, how do your favorite tenants reward you? That would be interesting to understand. Or your favorite customers, right?
Yeah, we've gotten a few gifts over the years. We've had some really good clients, and like you said, I pretty much will bend over backwards to do a fantastic job for anybody that we work with. And we've gotten some nice cash gifts over the years. On the other side, Mikey and I were talking the other day, but out of all of our property managers, there's probably 2, like you mentioned, for your agent, that we really feel have gone above and beyond to help us grow our portfolio. And So there's property managers, there's one roofer that has helped us that we usually give a generous tip to. And who else?
Frank, when you say a generous tip, can you clarify that?
Yeah, for what he did. So he did a roof for us. He gave us a price. He got it all done right on time. He did a few extra things. I think the roof total was $4,000. So when he finished, I gave him an extra $250 for himself for that. Like he washed the gutters. He didn't need to wash the gutters, and fixed a couple downspouts that were not in the scope of work that he had written up for us. Little things like that. And Mikey and I are working with a lender that's been really, really helpful to us both. So we're gonna, he's gonna be included in receiving something like that. Our St. Louis agent. But yeah, I think, some of the other bigger property managers, I don't know, I guess it's the ones that we have more of a personal dealing with, ones we actually talk to regularly, but the other ones are just kind of a machine. So probably not go there right now.
I think to Frank's point, I think once you start to build a network of people you habitually rely on, and if they do really good work, I think there's only upside in rewarding them, right? Whether you give them like $25 or $50 or a bottle of wine or a bottle of scotch, I think there's only upside in that. Like my goal is to build a loyal, trusted network of key suppliers, handyman, electrician, plumber, especially, roofer, maybe roofer. Yeah, that's fine. I got the Amish guys. They're awesome. And frankly, once you get that, like it just creates this sense of confidence. You feel like suddenly it's like, oh my God, in Lancaster, I'm so dialed in. You can get anything solved. And by the way, if they can't do it, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna talk to the roofer. I'm like, hey, like, do you guys do this? No, we don't do that. Do you know anybody does? Oh yeah, here's two guys, right? Like, I've got a bat issue in the attic. Help me out here. Well, bats are actually a protected species in Pennsylvania. You can't use an exterminator, but there are these wildlife management folks. Here's two folks in Lancaster that are really great. I mean, you just get so dialed in, and then I call that contractor, and I'm like, hey, you were referred to by XYZ Amish roofer guys. Oh yeah, they're great. We work with them all the time. They're great. What can we do for you, right? It's very powerful, and you suddenly once you have a zip code or a city dialed in, like when you start to buy properties, you're like, okay, now like, oh yeah, boy, you walk it, you're like, the roof looks kind of dicey. You invite your roofer, will you come? Hey, will you guys take a look at it? Yeah, like we'll swing by. We can't be there when you're there, but we'll swing by like next Saturday. Tell the real estate agent, hey, I got a roofer, look at it. Like it greases the skids, and you get a much higher level of confidence in your risk profile and your cost base.
Yeah, that's true. And Dion has talked about tipping his guys too, but just as important is making sure they're paid instantly. You don't want them chasing after you for their paycheck. So I think that's important too. Okay, you guys all good?
Last call, Frank.
That's it. All right. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for everything. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Have a good night, everybody. Thanks.
Thanks
Jason.
everyone.
Thank you, Frank.
Bye, Michelle. See you later, Mark. Bye, Sam. Matesh.
Thank you.
Take care.
See ya.
Thanks, Frank.